Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Ricky Soldinie, a Green Beret from the 5th Special Forces Group, 20th Special Forces Group, who was forced out by the vaccine mandate, went on to be a firefighter, and now spends his time with his large family on the big family farm down in Missouri. Hope you enjoy this conversation just as much as I do. Today's episode is brought to you by Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Dr. Taylor Bosley is an emergency medicine physician, an U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. Precision Wellness Group provides bioidentical hormone therapy through evidence-based, personalized telemedicine. There's a lot of information out there about HRT, TRT, hormone replacement therapy, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, all those influencers that are giving you information, they are not doctors. Dr. Taylor Bosley is. He knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get there. And he knows what you've been through, more importantly. Check them out. I will have links to their website and social in the show description. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Ricky Soldinie,
That's
welcome
right.
to Lesser Known Operators. Thanks for coming on, man.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you humoring me. You're my second guest that I've hamstrung from the comments section to come on the show. First guy was somebody on YouTube. I always hit him back. I need to start doing that if people make sarcastic comments or something. Nobody's done it about it, like experience or anything. And I challenge them to come on the show because I feel they back down right away. But that's not really how I do things. So, but I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. No problem. No problem. It's my pleasure.
How great is it to live where you work and on a farm and all that land, and just walk outside and go, this is pretty nice?
Oh, Nick, it's like, you know what I tell people? I tell people I'm the wealthiest man in the world in all the things that matter. Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to, I've come a long way, I'm a little older than you, obviously. I'm 47. I did 15 years total between active duty and the Guard, 5th Group and 20th Group. Unfortunately, got separated during the pandemic for the vaccine mandate. Was bitter. I'm at peace now, but part of that story is moving out to the land, kind of escaping the concrete jungle of the city, St. Louis specifically, and getting back to what things that I love and what my wife loved, which is small town living, family. My wife grew up on a cattle farm. I grew up in a small town on the beach. We both love animals. We both love being outdoors. And we've got 7 kids. So it just made sense for us to kind of go for it. And thankfully, we've come out of that on this end. Looking back, it's been almost toward year 4 now, I think, since the pandemic. Maybe 5, depending on where you think, where you put where it began or where it ends. And we're finally feeling like we're settled and doing well. So, but it's been a long journey.
How many acres do you have?
77.
Well,
77 acres.
10 per child. That's pretty good. That's enough space to keep everybody busy.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage. It's good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, God, before 12 or something, we lived on a farm, a corn soybean farm. We lived on there, and then the neighbors had horses and everything. I've been around farms all my life, but yeah, there's always something to do, something breaking, something that needs fixing, or something's crying, or something not crying. But
something's trying to die or trying to kill itself. Got sheep, goats, plants, bugs,
goats are
whatever
stuck
it
in
may
the
be.
fence.
Yeah,
something like that. Were you? So you went out from the. So for those who aren't aware, listening at home, the Army ended up separating soldiers that refused to take the COVID vaccine. And it's that was pretty early on. It was 21, I think they started that.
It was 21. It's about a year in.
A year in, and so they started separating soldiers, and now they've reversed that and are offering to bring them back with reinstatement of rank and pay and all that other shit. Were you tempted at all by that?
I was. I was, and there's a chance. I would do it under one condition. There's a buddy of mine named Matty, who also separated, but he was lucky enough. He had 22 years in, and so he was able just to put his retirement packet in. Um, but if he goes back, we were at the end of this. By the time I got separated, we were both on the 20th group training team to get guys prepped for selection to both recruit and bring them into the unit. This was Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 20th Group over at Camp Atterbury. And we were now Matty had been doing a training team for a while because he's an old guy and loved doing the training stuff. And I had gotten switched over there because, with the vaccine stuff, I went from being selected to be a candidate for warrant officer school to, persona non grata until I got my shot. So they threw me on the training team. Really enjoyed that, actually. It's kind of nice going sitting out in the woods, camping, doing land nav, doing all the, soldiering basics, teaching these guys, PT, whatever it was, teaching these guys, prepping them for the Q course. And Maddie hit me up after they, I think it was Trump. Yeah, it was Trump. Trump made the announcement of the back pay and reinstating soldiers. And he hit me up and he said, you want to get back in? I was like, only if we're doing training team stuff. I'm not going back in to be cool guy anymore. Cause like I said, I'm 47 now, man. And it's been, when I got out, I was 42, I guess. It's been 4 years. So 43, somewhere around that. And I was already like being the warrant officer, you're already kind of the old guy on the team. You're kind of mentoring guys. I was kind of the team dad, if you will, not the team sergeant, but the team dad, because I had a lot of kids and I was the oldest. But the pandemic changed everything, and I miss it. So I was tempted, but no, I'm good. I've made up the difference in money for both my civilian job at the time, which was a firefighter in St. Louis, and then guard time as an SF dude. So had 2 more kids since then. So I've got young kids, they're all under 11 years old. Actually 3 more kids. We just had another baby. I forgot that. That's right. He just turned 1. So we've got 7 total, 1 in the last year. So 3 since I've gotten out of the Army. So I've almost doubled my children. So it's really not feasible unless I can get back in and just, I would say, take it easy the last few years, get that pension and just focus on mentoring guys, the young generation into the Q course. That'd be a good gig. But other than that, no, I'm staying put.
Well, the National Guard's always there.
It's always there, man.
I get to go pretend in June. I don't know when this is going to come out, but I get to go pretend in June up here at I think Fort McCoy up in Wisconsin.
Mm.
Buddy of mine's the ops sergeant for I think it's Colorado National Guard. They're all over the place, and I don't. He lives here, but he goes to drill in Colorado. But he's doing a SFRE in Fort McCoy to get soldiers to try and pull them from here to send them. I was like, oh, that's confusing, man. All I asked was, can I wear my uniform? That's all I was like, can I just come and put my beret and uniform on and pretend? I know that sounds cheesy, but I think it'll be fun. I never got to do any of that shit. I would have loved to have been an instructor or any of those things.
Man, you know what's crazy? Yeah, so I'm familiar with, so that's probably 19th group out of Colorado, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so the SFRE is essentially the tryout for guys coming off of other guard units to come and train with 19th group in Colorado on a monthly basis to prepare them for selection.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. So that's exactly what I was doing. So that gig that you're about to, if he lets you come out there, which I'm sure he will, that's exactly what my buddy Maddie and I were doing. It's a blast. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Yeah. It's an absolute blast, and they're going to love you.
I get to see how things work too, because it seems the more I learn about National Guard, the less I understand about what the fuck. Everybody's responsibilities all over the place, and people are flying across the country to get drill done and get their hours and stuff and all that. So, man, that sounds confusing. You just showed up to first group and they're like, here, Asia, good. That's it. That's all you get.
No. SF Guard is it's kind of chaos. it's a lot of chaos, but we manage it. It's fun, actually. I mean, it's perfect for SF guys. We like traveling, we like to be on the move. So I think guys enjoy coming out from other states, flying or driving, getting that commute in and hanging out with the fellas, and then getting back to civilian life with their families. It's a good
Yeah,
gig.
whether it's being in, God, you run into everybody from like ATF agent to NASA rocket
Right.
scientist as well, and
Yep.
everything in the middle. So it's
Docs.
really,
We got
yeah, a lot
full
of
blown
doctors.
surgeons. Yep. Surgeons and PAs. It's crazy, man. They're still 18 deltas and they're still doing it, you know?
Yeah, they go. You're what do they call it? Tenured? No, is it tenured or you have when you're at a hospital and you're like up there, but it doesn't matter. And then you go be a E7 18 Delta on a
Right.
team
Right.
on your free time in the weekend. So,
Right.
but good for them, right?
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
to
And
do both things.
I'll tell you this, Nick, if the more you get to know those guys with the guard, there are guys that get back in despite being, whether despite being separated, whether they were retired. I know guys that have been retired and got back in. One sergeant major, in fact. And there's also guys that have been medically retired and get back in. So
I
there's always a way with the guard. If the state paperwork people know how to do their stuff, there's
so
always a
here
way.
I'll decide in editing if this is fine for it. I
Yeah.
talked to the unit I would go to, and I talked to the recruiter at the unit, and we came up with that 50-50 we could do it.
Right.
But the other 50% side is if we get everything done to get you ready for them to say yes or no, and they say no, then you're fucked. Because I'd have to waive all of the shit that's wrong with me up to a certain point.
Mm,
And and then I thought more about it. It's like, okay, yeah, I would stay in to be in the sport role because that's all I'm going to be. I can't get any more concussions. Like I have this fucking like I tense up and I like it's not a spasm or a seizure, but like
yeah.
it's really strange when I get hit and I can feel it right now in underneath in my head. It's like a hand and it runs down my neck and it's there.
Oh,
I know it's there
yeah.
and it's as good as it's gonna get. But if I get hit, it's gonna do this,
Yeah.
and it's like involuntary at this point. And but I'm good. I'm in my basement. There's nothing fucking swinging. There's no boats gonna fly out of nowhere or people hit me. And so yes, I thought about it, but I'm a liability to the other guys. It's one
Yeah.
thing if
Yeah.
I get killed, but if I get somebody else hurt or
Oh, no,
killed,
you'd have to be SFRE guy. You'd have to be training team
yeah,
guy for sure. For
which
sure.
which is
Which
fine.
would
But
work.
if I can go fill in as a civilian and just talk to people and you know provide some purpose, direction, motivation, and maybe the show provides some information
Yeah.
of yeah, it's a very rewarding career, but there are negatives to it, and you will oftentimes choose those negatives over the future positive to
100%.
continue
There's
your
always a
career.
cost.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
always a cost, man.
but
It's a tremendous cost.
I'd write that check again. So
Me too.
yeah,
Me too.
and everybody would with all of the pitfalls that happened and the ruining my life over and over. I'd still do it again. I'm happy where I'm at now, but I'd still do all that shit again, even getting
Hmm.
hurt. Like, yeah, it sucked. I didn't die. Um,
It's part of
Here
being
we
a
are.
soldier, man. There's a cost. We measure the cost before we go in. We count the cost, and we understand the potential pitfalls, and we still decide to do it because it's worth it. It's worth it. You know, we all have our reasons
Yeah,
to get in, but at the end of the day, across the board, what's common is, I think, we all want to answer the question, do I have what it takes? You know, and the only way to answer that question is to put yourself in the arena and do it and go for it around other guys that feel the same way and think the same way and are up for the same challenges, So
yeah.
absolutely.
Um, if you're happy in the regular army, great. Disregard this. My experience in the regular army. That is, you need to put your hand up again and volunteer again if you want to get into that arena to
Hmm.
go somewhere else. Because as I've said before, the regular army is not a place for high performers. Now, I have
That's
given
right.
that, I've said that many times on the show before, and I gave more thought to it. I went to staff at a field artillery unit. So my lens is very small about what I saw. And I went, this isn't for me. So if you went to a line unit with a fucking Ranger Battalion squad leader at the 82nd, you probably had a great time and got to do whatever you wanted to do. I didn't have that. So
Mm,
this is my purview, not yours. But I believe the vast majority of the regular army is not a place for high performers. And if you want to feel good about giving it everything you have, you're going to have to volunteer for some shitty things
that's right.
multiple times and then not quit, not fail, train up, use your personal time. So, um, sacrifice family time, personal time, mental health, your physical health, and then unfortunately, uh, uh, everything else in the process. Hopefully you can listen to this and draw some conclusions. Maybe I need to take better care of things, and that's what we come up with the show. But so yeah, it happens. But yeah, I'd do it again. I know you would too. And you got the option, but time's running out.
Yeah,
But
I'm done. I think I'm fit. Well, we'll see. If Matty gives me a call and says he's doing it, I was like, okay, I'll come in. We'll do it. We'll go run that training
eh,
team again. But
well, fine. If
yeah,
I
we'll
have
see.
to,
Yeah, that'd be
honey,
the only way. That's my only condition. Can we get on the training team?
honey, get the Pelican case out. Um,
Yeah.
so why? So is it specifically pumpkin farming, or what else? All you got there? Is it a
Yeah,
full
so
gamut?
we have a full deal. It's categorized business wise as a retail operation, or what we'd call in the business an agritourism farm, right? So it's only open seasonally. Right now, we're open in the fall, and we basically do 6 weeks of a fall festival with pumpkins, corn maze, flowers, sunflowers, zinnias, hay rides. We have so many things for kids to do. Zip lines. I have a 25-foot slide I built. Barrel trains, bounce houses, petting zoo, corn pits, duck races, giant bubbles. So much. Basketball hoops made out of grain wagons. We're bringing on a trebuchet this year that shoots pumpkins about 200 yards. I'm pretty pumped about that. Although I don't know if the insurance is going to cover it, so we have to navigate that. And we cleared 5 more acres to add some more things for the teenagers. So we'll put in some paintball, stationary setups where they can shoot like barrels, and of course have the trebuchet, and then probably sort of a hammock park for the moms be able just to hang out in the shade and just watch their kids play. So we got a lot planned. We're in our 4th year. Last year was the first, I would say, where I felt like it was a real business. It was extremely profitable. I actually had staff working. The first 2 years were we basically started with a patch of dirt in the ground. There was extreme drought. I had 3 acres of pumpkins, a hayride, and a slide. I didn't really have much. The corn maze died because of the drought, so we didn't make any money, but we kind of got the word out. It was still fun. Kids can have fun in anything, and we brought a lot more value the next year. And then last year we brought it. I felt like we brought a tremendous value last year. We built a lot more up. We had a pavilion and just looks a lot better. And word had gotten around. We did a ton of social media videos, and we did great. So I'm pretty excited about this year. I think it's become a thing, and we're I guess you could say we're pumpkin farmers, but the technical term would be an agritourism entrepreneur. I think is probably what it's more like. You
That
know,
term sounds terrible. Everybody loves
it
a
does.
farm.
I know pumpkin farmer's way better.
I
Yeah,
got a
pumpkin
pumpkin
farmer's
farm.
way better.
Because I hear that and I go, you got a pumpkin farm. You were a
Yeah,
Green Beret and you got a pumpkin farm. That's badass. I don't
yeah.
know.
I do grow
It's
pumpkins, man. It's not easy. Those things. The thing about a pumpkin is all the bugs and animals want to eat it. So I feel like I'm at war on a different battlefield. It's like more microscopic, right? I'm out there every other day looking for bugs and spraying for bugs and picking bugs and trying to think of creative ways to get my animals out there to eat bugs. And so, then there's disease. It's interesting. I've learned a lot in the last few years. So you could say I'm definitely a farmer. I'm definitely a
Nice, man.
farmer.
I love that. And that's like what the show is all about is lesser known operators. Special operations, you've got these people that perform at a high level, doing very dangerous um, operations, training, everything, right? And then you can pull them out and you can drop them in any environment,
That's
anything.
right.
We've had well, just on this show, skateboarder, the guy that runs Team Red, White, and Blue. You're running
Mm.
a pumpkin farm, you know, and just everything. You go through the list, be like, but you pull all these people out of special operations and you can throw them anywhere and they're going to succeed. And then you could pull them out of that and throw them back in and they're going to succeed.
That's right.
So it's great. And that people, you know, nobody knows who these people are. They just become members of the community. You know, you might use their background as a stepping stone or an introduction to get your foot in the door, but the rest is up to you.
Yeah.
I just think that's so great.
Yeah.
You
We're
know?
generalists. You know, our community, especially Green Berets, man. We're people. People. Our world and especially the business world, they like expertise and they like specialties. Guys that can specialize, but um, I think we can bring far more value as generalists because we can take any problem set and find a solution where none seem to exist. And that's where we bring a ton of value. And that's why, I think, our community as a whole is very good at adapting. Most of our guys are very good at adapting to new environments, finding access and placement in networking, whether it be in business, whether it be in defense contracting, farming, whatever that may be. We understand the human terrain, are able to navigate it, and then leverage what we ascertain into bringing value to whatever community or business or corporation we're trying to impact. I agree.
Yeah, man. Warrior diplomats. So, how did you settle on Missouri, though? You just were, St. Louis? Did you just choose to stay in Missouri, or how'd that work
No,
out?
I met is my wife. I mean, ultimately, with my wife, we met. I first met my wife back in fifth group. We went on we probably dated for about a month when I was at fifth group, and I was between deployments. I was young, and I was young and dumb because my wife's an amazing woman, and but I wasn't really serious about settling down at the time. Mostly because I was deploying, I just didn't have time, but also because my focus wasn't there. Right, when you're in group, and you know this, we don't live a balanced life. We're extremely focused on our job, and the females we run across that want relationships have to deal with that, and 99% of them are just not ready to deal with that. So, and then 99% of the guys aren't ready to settle down. So that was the situation I was in. But to make a long story short, a few years later, I was contracting. I was out of active duty at this time. I was contracting and living in Iraq. I think I was living in Iraq for about 18 months at that point. I came home, and my original stomping grounds are the Mississippi Gulf Coast and New Orleans, Louisiana. So when I came home, I was looking for a home base, and I was looking for real estate, a home, my first home in the city of New Orleans. My wife is at the time, she was the number one female Catholic speaker in the world. She was a globetrotter going around the world, sharing her faith and her story, which is an incredible story in of itself. And she happened to be in New Orleans. And this was in the early days of Facebook, relatively early, where you'd pop up if you're in the same city. It would used to pop up and say, "Oh, you've got this friend in this city." And so I saw that and was like, "Oh, Leah's in town. I'm going to see if I can hit her up and just maybe grab a coffee." And of course, because SF guys, we keep our we always we don't really tend to burn bridges. We always keep our tabs on old friends and even our old girlfriends, at least my buddies. And
Allegedly.
so yeah, allegedly. So I just hit her up, and so we went and we met up. And when I saw her again, it had been about 3 years since the last time I saw her. I just thought, "Oh, what is wrong with you, dude?" And of course, I was in a much better position as far as relationships go. At least I thought I was. I was living overseas, but I wasn't in active duty Army. And fortunate enough for me, she obliged when we met up for a coffee. After that, I was like, "Hey, you want to go out? Like, I'd like to, maybe show you the city." She's like, "Oh, you mean a date?" And I was like, "Yeah, like this." She's like, "Well, that depends." And so she put some conditions on there. Having dated me prior, she's like, "All right, first of all, are you going on any dates this week?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." She's like, "All right, well, first of all, no. If you're going to go on other dates, no, you can. I'm not going to go out with you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And at that point, I realized, crap. She's already seen this game play out once before, so I knew if I was going to take her out again, this would be for her and for me. We weren't going to. This wasn't going to be just a casual date. It's going to be like, all right, are we going to get back where we started and take this a little more seriously? So she proceeded to kindly ask me to go ahead and call and cancel my dates, and if I was willing to do that, then she'd be happy to let me take her out. And I was like, what a tough negotiator. So I literally sat there, called off. I think it was like 3 or 4, dates that I had lined up. Because, between a contracting deployment, you're maybe home for 3 weeks. And I wanted to get married. I was serious. I wasn't trying to just go around and, crush women's hearts or anything. I was looking for a wife. So I proceeded to call these young ladies up and say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna have to cancel. I think I'm gonna be, exclusive to this other young lady." So I proceeded to do that 3 or 4 calls, and Lee was like, "Okay, good, let's go out tonight." And so we did, and that ended up. She was in California at the time, San Diego. I was still in Iraq, but we started being exclusive. And so I found ways to take leave and meet up and come back home. And within 6 months, I had asked her to marry me. And so moved to San Diego. Then we moved to Denver when we got married. And then we found ourselves, when we started having kids, she wanted to be closer to her mom. And her mom was in St. Louis. So long story short, that brought us back to St. Louis. And that's where we've been since, up until the pandemic. And then we decided, let's go get some land and escape the city life and make an environment for our many kids. We had 5 at that time to thrive and to give them more space. So, yeah, that brought us to Missouri. So here I am in the Ozarks.
Beautiful place for everybody listening at home. The Ozarks is a beautiful place, and St.
Yeah.
Louis is the exact opposite of the Ozarks.
Yeah. St. Louis is a good Midwestern city. I don't want to, if for people that are in the big cities, the metropolitan, let's say they're LA, Houston, New York, Miami, some of these places, Dallas, and they want to kind of get to something that's a little less chaotic with a few million people less. St. Louis is a good spot. Real estate's affordable. Missouri is extremely affordable. You can still afford a home there. So St. Louis is good. But if you're trying to get away completely from the city life, obviously, Ozarks, Wisconsin, you got to get to the Midwest, man. Midwest or the mountains,
Yeah, anywhere there's farmers, it's going to be, you're going to be completely different.
And no people.
Yeah, I just drove through back from North Carolina again, and just, what a massive country. Just not a lot out there, just forests and farms and just driving for miles and miles and miles.
It's great, man. It's where the freedom is. You sacrifice, you trade off. There's trade-offs, obviously. Rural life's got a lot of trade-offs, but we've been pleasantly surprised, and I feel like we've both kind of gotten back to our roots. My wife grew up on, I think, 5,000 acres in Oklahoma on her grandfather's farm. And she was the reason why they left the farm is her grandfather was murdered by the farmhand. It's a tragic story. And they lost the farm as a result. And her dad, who was working the farm, he had to get a job. So he got a job at AT&T in St. Louis. And so Leah's family, and her dad was one of 8 kids. So all of his siblings are still in Oklahoma, outside of Norman, close to OU, okay. Oklahoma City. And so we're actually closer now that we're between St. Louis. We're in Springfield, Missouri, just outside Springfield. So we're like halfway between St. Louis family for Leah's parents and her siblings, and then we're close to all the old Oklahoma clan. So, but we feel like we've gotten back to our roots, and we're closer to family, and it's been a pleasure. The only thing for me is I grew up on the beach, so this landlocked business with no seafood's rough.
Well, you can get some catfish out of Lake of the
Yeah,
Ozarks,
yeah, we get
maybe.
that land, you get the landlocked fish.
No, that's cool. That's a terrible story. I'm not a big fan of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Big motivation for me to become SF was, getting stationed there, AIT basic training and all that
Oh, where
stuff.
were you?
Fort Sill, Lawton,
Oh man,
Oklahoma,
yeah.
which, if you ever
Oh,
get
there's
the
nothing
chance,
there.
yeah, I have 1 star. If I could give it, it's one of those reviews. If I could give it 0 stars, I would.
Yeah.
But I still do tell some stories about scooters out there on what was that, 82nd or 80th or something, right outside of town on Thursdays. Any coin would get you a beer from 8 to 11, and people and soldiers would come to PT the next morning, still have been out drinking.
Oh yeah.
They'd go in with a roll of pennies. They'd start the night out with and cover the table with pennies, and the waitress would come pull them off. And it's like, I lived right across the street. It's like, I'm going to bed, guys. This is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
they'd still be up the next morning at PTs. Oh my God. Woof. But, that doesn't change when you go to a special operations unit. The guys still doing the same thing. They're just better at
Yeah.
it.
Just a little. Yeah. Different scale of operations, and a different pace, I'd say, and higher quality ladies.
Yeah. So sometimes, yeah, Bragg Boulevard can be rough.
Oh yeah, well, it was a lower quality, but yeah. Yeah.
So you must have joined the Army pretty late 20s then, right?
Oh no, yeah, I joined. I was 26. I joined in
26. Yeah.
2004, right in the middle of Iraq War, like invasion. Like I think the invasion had just. Invasion was 03, right? 2003.
Iraq,
Iraq
yeah.
invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2003. So I joined. I actually joined in 2003, but at that time it was hard. Like there was a line to get in. Right, delayed entry program. I had to wait. I ended up going to basic in May of 04, but I had joined in 2003, right around the invasion, and had
What'd
to
you
wait
enlist
several
as?
months. 18 X-ray,
Oh,
18 X-ray. Yeah.
I'm starting to, 30 to 40% of my guests went 18 X-ray
Oh, it's a
between
good program.
2002 and 2007.
Yeah.
It's a disproportionate amount. But so why enlist at all, and then why go 18 X-ray?
Oh gosh, I mean, for me, it was the war, and I felt like as a young patriotic American man, seeing my generation go to war was compelling. And I was extremely ticked off at everything that was going on in the world at the time. First of all, with 9/11, which was what triggered my initial. I would have joined on 9/11 had I not been overseas. I was working as a missionary overseas at the time. So if I weren't overseas as a missionary and I had just gotten there on September 11th, I was in Germany as an evangelical missionary with a group called Campus Crusade for Christ, which is known as CRU now. It's a college campus ministry. And I had just gotten to Germany. We were doing our briefing, our onboarding to be missionaries. And I was, of all places, I was at the University of Pisa in Italy, which is where I was going to be assigned to for a year. And 9/11 happened. Watched the towers fall. One of my best friends who was with me, and we were both in this group together, we almost left country, came back and enlisted, but we kind of got talked out of it. And at that point, we had a ton of financial support from a lot of people to do this Christian missionary work, and so it would have meant sort of reneging all that, and we just didn't. I didn't feel like I could do that, at least at that time. But after a year of that, a year and a half of that, I stayed there for 2 years. Ended up staying there for 2 years. By the time we got to the Iraq stuff, I was like, I can't sit on my butt drinking espressos in Italy anymore. I gotta join the army. And not that that wasn't good work, but I just still felt that call to join, and that's what I did. So, 26 years old, came back home, immediately enlisted. They told me I couldn't get in, so I had to look for work. Um, and I think what was I doing at the time? Oh, so yeah, I signed up as a mortgage lender specialist with Wells Fargo. So this was pre 2008, obviously. So I was one of the guys doing all the mortgages and refinances for what would eventually become the uh, the 2008 bubble.
You crashed the market. It was all
Yeah, I
you.
was
And
one
then
of
you
those guys.
dipped.
Lord have mercy on me, man. I was evil. I didn't know I was doing this. I was pretty naive. I thought I was helping people. I guess I actually was helping people. If the people made poor decisions after reconsolidating all their debt and they got back into debt, well, yeah, that's their fault. But I was definitely helping guys refinance their mortgages into low rates and kind of get squared away. But I'm sure at least a good, decent percentage of those people, who knows, probably defaulted a few years later, or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I was part of that whole deal while waiting for the army. And then when the army finally was able to ship me off, I put in my resignation and went to become a lowly specialist in the Army and began my journey at Fort Benning at OSIT 11 Bravo School. And, the rest is history.
Yeah.
You know?
The guy I had on yesterday, Chris Thompson, he's got Cleaner Products, natural soap and sundries and a bunch of other stuff. Shout out to
Oh,
Chris.
nice.
Um, he went like the first couple classes of SOPSI, Special
Yeah.
Operations Preparatory Course. And I was asking him, and he didn't like, and I interviewed so many people that were 18 X-rays that went in
Yeah.
those early single digit years, two,
Yep.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he's like, it wasn't as bad as some of the other guys say it was. So it started out one way with cadre that were already at selection, and they're like, okay, run this program. And it morphed into fear of missing out of the war, rotating out of third or fifth group, coming
Mm-hmm.
from combat, and then being SOPSI cadre,
That's
and then
right.
just going, what do you fuck do you mean you want to be a Green Beret? Fuck
Right.
you. I'm going to make your life miserable. And I
Yeah.
assume that's what you walked into.
That is what I walked into. That is what I walked into. Yeah. Now, the cadre at SOPSI were committed to their mission, right? They absolutely wanted to see us succeed, but they were absolutely committed to weeding out the wheat from the chaff, man. I mean, I felt like it was pretty rough. Now, I felt like SOPSI was harder than selection by a
That's what
lot,
everybody says. Yeah,
by
that's
a
what everybody
lot.
says. Yeah.
I felt like selection was like, oh, well, they prepped us. We just ran through this, and then the Q course ended up being more difficult, especially phase 2 at that time. Phase 2 was another place where those same SF dudes who had come back from two, infinite deployments in two different countries were like, who are these fucking 18 X-ray people? And I felt like phase 2 was definitely a more overt attempt to not only weed out, but to kick out. At least in our company, in my experience, in my one rotation through there, they definitely wanted 18 X-rays out. At least that group of cadre, they wanted them out. Yeah,
You only see that when you start out, you're only on one side of the perspective. And then
yeah,
you graduate and you get to group and you see the other side, and you kind of get the feeling, yeah, I would be the same way if I was a cadre
yeah,
back
hundred
then
percent.
too. But when you're on the front side of it and you have no view, because almost everybody that comes on here, great percentage of people have no idea what they're getting themselves into,
Yeah,
really what group is, what it
yeah,
means to be a Green Beret, anything. It's just rumors. Like I came from a regular Army unit where SF was like a ghost, you
mm,
know, of those guys and shit. People talked about how they worked with them, and that that was a story and shit. And I go, oh, well, fuck, I get to put my hands in my pockets. So that's the joke at the time.
Yeah,
You get to put
yeah.
your hands in your pocket. But did you have any idea when you enlisted or got to SOPSI or even in the course of what you were getting yourself into? Did you know what a Green Beret even did or was?
Yeah, I mean, I'd done some basic Google searching, and I'd gotten to talk to one SF colonel out of 10th group who was gracious enough to do a phone call, like a 2-hour phone call that I got networked with. I can't remember who introduced me to him, but he was in Germany and took a phone call with me because of our mutual friend. And he told me, he said, I don't know anything about this 18 X-ray program, but I would imagine it's going to be very difficult to get through. And so he's like, you need to be aware of that and understand that it's probably going to have a high attrition rate and you may end up at the 82nd or in Korea. Because I was a smart guy. I had a college degree. And so he was, and him being a colonel was like, why don't you go to OCS? He was like, why don't you go to OCS? We need good officers. And then you can go, once you do your OCS time, you can go to the Q course as a captain or a first lieutenant promotable. And I said, yeah. I said, but the war's going on now. And the fastest way to get into this is to enlist. And he's like, yeah, you're 100% right. And he's like, but just understand your risks. Just understand, like, you might be
But now
27.
now
Yeah.
knowing how things work, if you would have gone to OCS, you'd have been deployed like
Oh,
immediately as a lieutenant.
absolutely.
Instead, you
Absolutely.
had the two X-ray 2.5 year, no,
Yeah.
Delta 3 year. You weren't
Yeah.
going to make it to a team for 3 years.
Yeah. I had no idea it was going to be an 18 Delta. I think I was in the Q course for, almost 3 years, 2.5 years. And I had no plans to be a Delta. That's a whole thing by itself. It's just how I became a Delta. But yeah, I mean, initially I just thought I'm going to go fight. I'm going to go be a SF dude, and hopefully, I knew that I was taking a risk, but I felt like I would do whatever it takes to win. And everything else that's out of my control, if I got injured or if they just didn't want me, I knew that as long as I gave it my all, I could live with it if they didn't want me. If I tried out, I was an athlete in high school. I understood, there's a tryout. And so I understood, and the recruiter was good too. He said, look, this isn't a guarantee that you'll make it. This is a guarantee that you'll get an opportunity to get to selection if you pass OSIT, airborne school, and SOPSI. They're like, you'll get an opportunity to go to selection. I was like, let's do it. Let's freaking go. I knew that I just needed an opportunity. And I looked at other things. I looked at the Marine Corps. I looked at OCS. I looked at the SEALs, but they didn't have a fast track program. And I wasn't really interested in them. I was more interested in sort of the Army. I felt like I wanted to be more of a generalist. My natural tendency and temperament is a generalist. I have a lot of interests. I can do a lot of different things. And so it just felt like a good fit. And then talking to that colonel, it sounded like those were my people. I felt like, I didn't want to say this to him, but I felt like, okay, I think these are my people. This is the group of guys that, having talked to one guy that I felt like, yeah, I want to be like this guy, So, and through it all, when you encounter, in basic training, I feel like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Right? Because I'm 26 years old, and most of these guys are 19, 18, 17 years old. And I felt like, they're not the brightest guys, right? These are the grunts. And there were some other 18 X-rays in our class, and I felt like I was like, well, we're not all going to make it. I know that, and hopefully I'm one of them that makes it. But I was like, ooh, that colonel was right. There's going to be a weeding out process, obviously, just in basic training. And then by the time we got to SOPSI, and it was game on. If you'd made it through airborne, everybody was pretty, hua, right? And I was like, oh, I don't think this is even getting hard yet, guys. I think we got a lot more ahead of us. And by SOPSI came around, I'd say 3 out of 4 guys were gone by the end of SOPSI, easy, if not more, probably more like 80%.
Yeah. and off to the 82nd, or
Yeah,
at one
Korea and
point,
82nd at the time. They were all going to Korea in the 80s. It was horrible. They got
and
their
then
orders.
and then the 82nd was getting too many people, so they started sending them to Alaska, I believe, or something like
Yes,
that.
that's right. That's right.
Because they're
Yep.
like, we don't need we don't need any more airborne
Yeah.
qualified infantrymen, which
Yeah.
is crazy for the 82nd to say. But no, it is the irony. I think it's irony. Yeah, the irony. I want to get into the fight as quick as I can, and you could not, other than becoming a doctor in the military,
Yeah.
in going to med school, you could not have picked a longer route to get
Yeah.
to the fight.
That's right. By the time I got to the team, we were on the surge. and I joined during the
2007,
invasion. Yeah,
2006,
07,
2007, 07.
2006, 2007. I was in surge '07. So yeah, right in the middle of the surge. Basically OAF, was that OAF 4? I think OAF 4. I can't remember. I have to look at the orders.
Talking
OAF
to the wrong
4.
person,
Yeah.
but
It was a
no,
surge.
that's
It was wild. I got in like the deployment with it was awesome. It was wild. It was wild. It was a lot of fun, a lot of terrifying too, you know. But yeah, I got in. I felt like I got my time in. It's for sure. I I paid my dues. I don't have any regrets. You know.
What'd you think about the Q course though? Because you have that weeding out process, and guys will fall away. Is it, what were you thinking as you're starting to go through it and discover more about not only what it is to be a Green Beret, but like the step by step instruction of things?
Um, I think the Q course, at least for us, the time period we went through, selection was pretty. We were well prepared. Those dudes, those were mostly fifth group guys too. Looking back on a couple 10th group guys, a lot of man, incredible guys, man, incredible cadre. I felt like, you know how in the Army people that become cadre are either hurt or they're old, you know. Um, Usually like, I'm tired, I want to go do something, take a chill, I got family going, or they're hurt and they're trying to recover. At least in the SF cadre, like, or they're trying to get promotion, they got to go to SWIC for a promotion. Felt like these guys, man, were the cream of the crop, man. I mean, they were studs. All these guys became team sergeants and sergeant majors in the Army. I won't use full names, but they were just incredible guys. And I looked up to them. Extremely hardcore guys at SOPSI specifically. They prepared us so well for selection. It was a breeze. So I feel like the weeding out phase was SOPSI, and then phase 2, which was SUT. And whereas the cadre were weeding you out, but still preparing you, the SUT guys were absolutely trying to get you out of the Q course. So there were 3. I think the way it worked when I was in there was Alpha Bravo Charlie Company for SUT. It was, I think it was 6 weeks long, maybe 4. It was either 4 or 6. I want to say it was 6 weeks long.
SUT 6 weeks.
Is it 6 weeks?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't
6
know.
weeks long,
Whatever.
4
It
weeks.
fucking
And it
sucked.
changes.
I don't
It
know.
changes all the time. Yeah, it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. We had one company where every single 18 X-ray was gone. Every single one. Like within the first 4 days. So you knew, like we knew, and I wasn't in that company. That was Charlie Company. I think it was either Alpha or Bravo. I can't remember which company I was in, but I knew Charlie Company was the one. If you were in Charlie Company, you were gone. It was like a mass, you're gone. And so you had a third of the 18 X-rays were just immediately gone. And some of them were studs. You could tell, like, it was definitely a culling. No question. It was an absolute indiscriminate culling. And so Alpha and Bravo Company were like, holy shit. And then throughout the process, I watched the cadre tell the Ranger tabbed E7s and E6s and other infantry dudes, whatever you got to do, make sure these freaking guys don't make it through. And there's a lot of 18 X-rays. So it was probably in my company, and I should say my team, because it was a company that each, you had I guess they called us squads, or I can't remember what they called us, but they called us, we had a group of about 10. I would say 3 or 4 of those dudes were senior NCOs or mid-level NCOs, and the rest of us were specialists, 18 X-rays. And the only thing that kept us from getting kicked out was, and a lot of guys that attest to this, 18 X-ray mafia, man, is the X-ray mafia. We had to we literally got together, all right, when peer review comes around, we've got to put each of us top of the thing, and we got to rotate it, or we're going to get called. And the other guys knew it. And we would actually put the senior NCOs last on the peer review, because we knew no matter what, they're not going to get kicked off the island because they're Ranger tabbed and E6s and E7s, right? At infantry, with deployments, with the deployment. So we knew they're going to get pushed through, assuming they perform, right? This is all assuming everybody performs. But they made our lives absolutely miserable. And the cadre made our lives miserable for the first couple weeks. Then about midway through, they kind of let off a little bit and said, all right, I think we got a decent crop of guys, right? So they let the team dynamics with those NCOs kind of. I think we had one guy quit, which is sad. It's always sad to see a guy quit, especially in SUT. But good riddance, if you're going to quit, then it's going to get much worse later. So, but for the most part, and some of my best friends, one of my guys, AJ, one of my best friends, we went through SUT together. He's still one of my best friends, man. And when we get together, do the fireside chats, that always comes up, But yeah, so that was the culling phase. We made it through that. And then once we got into phase 3, which was the MOS phase, I felt like there was finally, we were being trained, we were being trained and professionally trained by other 18 Deltas cadre they all had deployments, they all seen combat, and they were like trying to get us ready for what they had seen, which was horrifying, what they had seen, what they had done. And they did a great job. The only culling phase in 18 Delta was the first iteration, which is A&P, where they literally, it's basically, anatomy physiology. It's basically IQ test, right? They run you through there and they're like, all right, if you don't make a 70 or above, you're gone. You're going to be switching to Bravo or some like they call it the dummy MOS, right? The 18 Deltas like to, consider themselves the smartest guys on the team for the most part, IQ wise. And you're going to go to dummy school, and so nobody wanted to fail. But I know plenty of guys that went to dummy school after that first iteration. They were still in a Q course, but they went to 18 Bravo or 18 Charlie. But I didn't pick 18 Delta. That's the other thing. We got out of SUT, and a sergeant, one of the cadre at SUT, his name was Sergeant Stubbe, and he's still pretty active on social because he does a lot of nonprofit stuff. Basically, the Q course didn't have enough 18 Deltas. So they pulled aside all the guys, and I was assigned as an 18 Echo. They pulled the guys that were all 18 Echoes and 18 Charlies, I think. None of the Bravos. They pulled 18 Charlies and 18 Echoes, pulled us aside and said, hey, Stubbe was an 18 Delta, and he made his pitch. And he made a damn good pitch because almost all of us raised our hand and said, all right, I'll go be a Delta. Is it, you guys, SF groups need Deltas. We're short. He's like, you guys all have the ability to do it. We've pulled you because of your GT scores. If you can do it, do it. And me and my other buddy, AJ, we both raised our hand and we became 18 Deltas. And that obviously prolonged the Q course because we would have been done in probably like 6 or 7 more months had we not chosen that. And we were in for another year. Easy.
It's funny. So I wish I could remember who it was. So it had to be the same exact class that you're in, but he was a Charlie, and they didn't get, hey, who wants to be a Delta? The cadre came out read off 20 names and said, "You're coming with us." And they took them all over to the Delta course, and they all failed AP. And then they all
Wow.
got boarded. And then they're like, we didn't want to be here because they
Yeah.
start boarding them, question them, and go, we just got told to show up.
Oh,
And they're like, he's like, what the fuck do you mean you got told to show up? And they're like, they just pulled us out of formation and sent us to the Delta course. He goes, oh.
they're trying to call him.
And then no, they all just got sent back where they came from because and shit. I don't know
Oh,
how
I
many it
see.
was, but yeah, I think it had to be. It was the same years. But
Yeah.
I talked to somebody, but
It was
yeah,
wild. Oh 04, oh 05, oh 06 was absolute chaos in the Q course, man.
yeah, we don't have
Chaos.
enough deltas, so let's pull them from all these other MOSs. And you get over there, and go, well, I guess I'm fucked now.
If you're an 18 Bravo and you got pulled, yeah, you're screwed. You're
Oof, I don't.
screwed.
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine that bringing that to a question over the 18 Bravo candidate or cadre, and then they look at their pool of guys and go, from these guys,
Yeah.
I
Still
like,
smart guys.
oh
Still
yeah,
smart
still
guys.
very smart, but I talked about this with 18 good guy. The phrase you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your lowest level of training.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not true. You rise to the occasion. I rose to the occasion at
It's
selection
both.
and in the course all the time. Like I fucking
Yeah.
didn't know how to do shit. I just did it. Like,
Yeah.
but if you're not ready to rise to that occasion, you, which you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a Bravo, and then I'm getting through and playing with guns, and then all of a sudden you're a Charlie or you're an Echo, right? And you're like, hey, you got to go be a Delta. Very little chance that you're
No,
gonna
man.
rise to the occasion because you're gonna be like, well, no, why? I don't want to fucking do that. You gotta kind of want to be a Delta, or at least get told that right away.
Right.
To be
Right.
successful, like, okay, I got to get myself in the right headspace. I got to learn how to study again because
That's what it was.
I don't. I mean, Charlie course, yeah, I studied, but not like the Echoes did, not like the Deltas did, and not certainly not like the Bravos did. Like I
Yeah.
did the least amount of studying, I think, for all my buddies. Like
Easy.
period.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hardest thing was when we had to identify, fuses and detonation, all that other stuff. But like the rest, it was just learned in class. Like the Deltas were up 23 hours a day for
We were.
months.
It
Like
was crazy.
fuck that.
Yeah. No, it was horrible. I mean, I remember thinking, this has got to be, and I had friends at the time. I had two friends that were in med school, and I was telling them what I was doing. They were like, that's not that different from med school first year, you know, as far as especially the first couple months where you're just doing books. Oh, yeah. I mean, we were in our little barracks rooms. We didn't, we drank, but not for partying. We drank to relieve some stress, right? Quizzing each other till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to get ready for that test the next day. And then the following day, all day, going through books and books and books or practicals, right? Learning how to do procedures.
Yeah,
So it's,
the Deltas, they said, during, was it SFMS or SOCM?
yeah,
Um,
SFMS.
which is that first?
No,
They're like, we
Sockham's
didn't go.
first.
Sockham's
Sockham's
first.
first.
They
Yep.
didn't go out at all. But when that
Yeah.
Sockham was over, they all went out and those were some
Yes.
party animals after that.
Yes. You
You
get like a
know,
2 week break and then you start SFMS. Yeah. Yeah.
well, it's different now. But
Absolutely.
when I went through the course, it was they did their 9 months. Then we did phase one, which I don't know if phase one exists anymore. You had to do the STAR exam again. You had to do some gates and things. I think it's different now.
Yeah, it's
Um,
selection. Is that they don't do selection?
no, selections pre all this. Say they had
Oh,
another. They had a so you did selection. I went to the selection. I passed. I went back to my unit. I went to airborne. I went back to my unit. I PCS to brag. I started phase zero, which was I had to go to ALC, I think, or something
mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that, and then we did phase one, I think, and that was the star. It was all the gates again, and a fucking
Really?
shitload of people failed. Yeah, I don't think it's there anymore because I just talked to one of the guys that does Task Force Voodoo. Shout out to Dave Walton. He does Ruck Up or Shut Up, book series about how to pass selection. And I don't think it's there anymore because I think you just do the STAR exam at selection.
Yeah,
But
that's the way the star was definitely like selection when I'm surprised. So they separated it. That's the hardest
there,
part of selection.
they said they did the most tinkering in the years that I went. No,
Huh.
you still do the STAR at selection, but
Hmm.
they had another one at the NTAs on the north side of Bragg, and
Oh, I see.
it was fucking
Horrendous, huh?
miserable. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
200 dudes out there, 200 some dudes out in the field, and like 70 of them passed. So
Damn.
70 some percent of the class like got recycled from this. And I think they
Oh,
started making changes after that because they were losing too many guys. But I could be wrong. If you were a cadre or a leader at that time, lesser known operators at gmail.com. I'd love to have you on. Um, but I went through the first easy class. I thought, I tell
yeah.
like people, it's like I just found this path, like the pathway through the draw. And
Yeah.
people standing to the right and the left of me, they had a shitty time. I had a also shitty time, but mine was the least shitty of all the
Yeah.
friends group.
Yeah.
I just figured out a way to do it. Whether that was, you know, finding 5 for 5 on this second STAR exam, so I didn't have to do day 2, and then I could go out and
Oh,
party and shit,
yeah. Yeah.
But
Eat your
because
MRE into the
because
fire.
a hurricane came in that night and fucking shit on those guys all night. So I didn't
Oh,
have to do that. I got my goes right away in all the courses. So I just kind of hung out and carried heavy shit. It still sucked, but for some reason, this non-combat arms specialist at SUT, I only was in a leadership position for like 23 hours. So the course is weird. You
it
can
is.
you can get shit on like your guys's where um, they say the course is now, like in 2025, is as hard as it's ever been. That I don't think is true because, there were people getting brutalized in the early 2000s. No matter how hard the course was or wasn't, it was shitty for some group of people,
Yeah.
like really shitty. Like you weren't going to pass no matter what. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different
There
experience.
was definitely guys like that Charlie company in SUT where you didn't matter. You were gone. That's just crazy, man. Or like, I don't know if anybody, did anybody ever bring up the gig pit at SOPSI?
You know who was on here? Dave Fielding, Asset Mindset. I don't know if you, and
Uh-uh.
he's like, they got into the gig pit one day and the cadre was like going to give it to him. And he was like, I got to get out of this somehow. And he's like, he told him to camo up and he takes like 2 arms full of mud and just drapes himself in it. And the
Yeah.
cadre like kind of broke character and goes, you're done. Like he got out of it. And the other guys got fucking smoked for hours.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, that gig pit, man. I have never seen more MRSA infections in my life. Um, and it was
And then the
horrendous. There's a lot of people quit from the gig pit.
82nd dudes, when they were drunk at night, would walk by it and piss in it,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Oh, bro, it smelled like piss and shit and vinegar. It smelled like shit and syphilis. That's what like it smelled like shit and syphilis. It was horrifying. You know, and and we went through when it was cold. So we had to break the every morning we had to go out there and our cadre, they were just sadists, man. They'd be like, all right, guys, time to break the ice. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, go break the ice, guys. Break the ice in the gig pit. And they wanted you to break every piece of ice in the gig pit. And we did. And we froze our nuts off. And we were covered in, and we did this every day, man. Every freaking day. And dudes were like medically done because of MRSA. Another calling, man. Like if you got MRSA and it was too bad, gone. Or you'd quit, man. It was just absolutely. I mean, we'd stand there for a couple hours at a time, man. Just PTing our ass off, doing Space Invaders, swimming, cover, and yeah, they didn't. They gave no shits about getting sick or hurt.
Did you
Or
ever encounter, because guaranteed there were dudes that could have been or would have been great Green Berets that got dropped as in that 18 X-ray program for whatever reason, for injury,
yeah,
for sickness or whatever. or they fucking forgot their glove or one sock or some shit, right?
Yeah,
Um, they go to the 82nd. Did you ever encounter people that did and then just went right back to selection and then took the easy way around? Because that probably would have been much easier route.
I don't personally know anyone, but I know that there are dudes that have done that. I don't personally know anyone that's nobody on my team but there were absolutely some guys that you're like, gosh, he would have been, you were sad to see him go because he was just a good dude, strong, fit. And he was more medical stuff, right? You see guys get hurt. See guys, tear ACLs. I saw a lot of that. Tear their ACL and they're just done. Although I saw guys come back from that. Saw a guy blow out his back and come back later. Because the thing is, you'll see like the Bravos and Charlies, you'll see them get hurt. But because you're a Delta, you're in a course longer, you'll see them recover and get back through. Right. So, but some dudes, yeah, I don't know anybody personally. To answer your question, I don't know anybody personally.
I felt bad for the X-rays. Like I took
But
the
yeah, it
easy way
is.
around. I enlisted. I got to my unit, signed my sheet of paper, and went right to selection. And these guys had been getting shit on for months. And I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, I never been smoked. I didn't get smoked at basic or
yeah,
AIT. I've never been in trouble. I've never had a counseling. And here I am at selection with you guys, and they're like, "Fuck you."
yeah. Well, looking back on it, I think it's necessary. I learned so much in that, man. I'll share a story with you I actually have never shared this with anybody of an extreme L that I took. I think it's probably my most embarrassing moment of my life. The most, the most shameful moment of my life as a man. Um, and why I think it's necessary for this kind of, I'll call it indoctrination, hazing. Because I was 26 years old, I thought I was better than all these guys, man. Other X-rays, especially the young ones that were stupid and just idiots. They weren't focused. I was extremely focused. I was extremely motivated. I felt like I had a lot more to lose because I was older and I didn't want to go to the 82nd. So I was just really, really self-centered and only focused on myself going into SOPSI. And you didn't go to SOPSI, but the guys, if any 18 X-ray listening to this, if they'll know what I'm talking about. SOPSI is not an individual sport, right? It is to an extent. SF is not an individual sport, right? You have your own individual performance that you have to do. You have standards you have to make as an individual. But those cadre are not just looking out for who isn't going to physically make it or intellectually or mentally tough to make it. They're also looking for who isn't going to play well with others or who isn't fitting in with the team, right? And for me, those early, like first 2 weeks of SOPSI, I got the first peer card, the first time I ever got peered, and I peered last. And I was definitely one of the top performers, definitely one of the smarter guys, but I was an absolute asshole to these guys, man, because I was like, you guys are fucking retarded. If you don't do this, you're not going to make it. I just was done. I was like, fuck these guys. I got a job to do. Right. But I didn't know there was a peer thing. When the peer thing came up, I was dead fucking last. I was like, oh shit. And the things that they wrote were they were fucking painful, man. I had played team sports my entire life. And I just thought, I took for granted that this was a team game. Right. And that was a turning point for me. And I was ashamed. I was absolutely ashamed. And I just thought to myself, never fucking again, man. And one of those cadre, he pulled me to the side. And he's like, hey, man, we could kick you out right now. He's like, we could technically kick you out. Anytime somebody peers last, they're gone. And he said, so what's going on? Why? I read these. You read them. What's going on? I said, well, I'm clearly being an absolute dickhead to people that are in my, barrack space that are doing these events with me. We didn't really have a team. We were all mixing, you would do events together and you'd mix it up, do events. So what was consistent across the board was anybody who was with me was like, fuck that guy. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. And I said, I was, I was 26. I wasn't like old and wise, but I was older than all these other guys. I was like, clearly I'm being a fucking dickhead, and if I don't change, um, this is not going to be for me. And he's like, Roger that. Good. I'm glad you see it. He's like, so I will not kick you out, but if this continues, we don't have to kick you out. You're going to weed yourself out. That's what he told me. You're going to weed yourself out. He's like, if you're not a team player and if you can't play well with others, you're going to weed yourself out. He said, and what's great about this guy is he said, this is at every level. He gave me a good counseling. He said, this won't be just at SOPSI. This will be at selection. It'll be all through the Q course. And guess what? When you get to a team, it doesn't end. He's like, you can get your rucksack will be out in the hallway if you are a shitbag. He's like, you can be the best performer in the world, the best shot, but if they don't fucking like you because you're a dickhead, well, two things are going to happen. One, you're either going to get taken to the wood line, because that was still a thing back then, or they're going to put your rucksack in the hall and say, good luck, go to the B team.
Yeah.
And you will be shamed and your reputation will be done, and good luck getting on another team, man. So that was the first sort of L that I took in my life. Not only my life, but my Army career. But man, like from that point forward, I saw clear as day what I needed to do. And it wasn't not perform, it was perform, and everybody around me, bring them with me along the way. Right? And ultimately that's how is that any different than team life?
No.
It's the team sergeant is the guy, usually the best performer, the most experienced, most knowledgeable. Is he crushing everybody? Yeah, he is. He's holding the standard, but he's like, all right, well, we got to pick you up and bring you along the way. And eventually, if you can't perform or you're a shitbag, well, you're not going to be on a team very long,
Yeah,
So,
it's good you learn that early. You're always
God.
being assessed. You're always being assessed. That shit
Thank
never
God.
ends. I had my buddy Tom on the show, and I got one. No, well, at SUT, I got a bunch of pinks because one officer didn't know my fucking name, dickhead. He had me convinced to somebody else, and the cadre's like, I don't think these are for you, so I'm just going to throw these away. But we're at Sage, and I'm getting mine. It's blue, 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 and then last one pink. And I go, what the fuck? And then the team sergeant, my
Yeah.
buddy now, he goes, I don't think you're taking this seriously, because I'm not. I am not taking it seriously at all. I didn't take the whole course seriously because that's just what I do. I'm a goofball, and I'm
Yeah.
very sarcastic, and I make everybody laugh. Like I have
Yeah.
a good time, and I go, you just wait, man. You're gonna fucking love me. And we got to the end, and he not only did he give me a blue slip, he put me in for like the leadership award or something for the
Yeah.
graduation.
That's right.
And he goes, man, if you wouldn't have been here, this would have fucking sucked. And I said, yeah,
Yeah.
it's fucking like the whole thing's shitty. We're here together. Like I'm the comic relief guy on the team. The one
Yeah.
who
I love it.
I can make now. Unfortunately, I'm a big complainer. So my bit, like
Yeah.
I complain, I can complain like no other. Like but I feed off of it. I'm like, this fucking blows. And then I get nicked to somebody else that's a complainer, and we just fucking complain the whole time. So that's kind of crosses the line, but I know what you mean, that you are always being assessed, and you have to find how your personality works in the team. Like
That's right.
mine can be abrasive to some people, but if I word it as like where somebody's chuckling or it's not at the right time, you can call
Yeah.
people retarded to their face
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they'll love you. But
Yeah.
if you do it at the wrong time, well, that's not going to go over well. And you'll just
Yeah.
get all pink slips, and you'll just get all
Right.
shit on, or like you said, your shit's going to be in the hallway. You're going to be
Yeah.
on the B team, and Sergeant Major's going to be like, you're going to go be the armorer now. I'm sorry. I have
Yeah.
nowhere else for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's no fun.
Sorry if you're an armorer out there. I'm sure it was a funny story how you got there.
Hey, some 18 Bravo had a hard lesson, but that's a good thing. I mean, look, if you spend enough time in group, you always get a second chance. You always get a second chance. It's just a hard lesson.
Sergeant Major said it one night, somebody fucked up, and we had to clean out some team rooms and look for a missing item that wasn't missing. And we're walking out, we're finally done for the night. He goes, You know, the good part is he's only a fuck up until the next guy fucks up, which will be
That's right.
like really soon.
Right,
So
right.
everybody's got a short memory. And I said,
Yeah,
oh, okay. Is that how, I hope it's
that's
not
pretty much how
me.
it goes.
And then I went, I hope it's not me. Fuck.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Team life's
I
the
had
best life.
I had a doctor on, and I said that rumor because it looks like you went on to be a paramedic, right?
I did after service, yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, you know the rumor, like Deltas, they're basically PAs. Because when we're in the course, that
Yeah.
was the rumor. You're like, you're only a couple courses away from being a PA.
Yeah.
And I told him that, and he goes, yeah, that's fucking bullshit. Fuck, that is not even close to true. Like, stuff, but it's not the right stuff. So you got to do other things. Did obviously you'd heard that rumor. How did that
Yeah.
fit in? When is paramedic a lot closer to Delta in the civilian
Oh,
world?
as a yeah, I mean, they used to give the paramedic license out after SOCM in the Q course. So 100% paramedic is we're actually way more trained than a paramedic because we do the medical side, right? Paramedics they don't learn labs and they're not doing practicals
You
for
mean
surgery and,
you mean EMT?
EMT paramedic. A paramedic is an
Okay.
EMT. So EMT is emergency medical technician. And then there's different levels of EMT. So you're either EMTB, basic, EMTI, intermediate, or EMTP, which is paramedic.
Oh, okay.
And you come like halfway through the course with the trauma portion, you're a paramedic. It's just a matter of whether you get licensed or not, whether the Q course, the schoolhouse will pay for your license. So you, at a minimum, they would pay for your EMTB, and they go in cycles whether or not they pay paramedic or not. But as far as the PA thing, look, I think it just depends on the individual. Some guys get chosen to be a medic and they hate it, and they're really smart and they do it, but they hate being a medic. Some guys choose to be a medic or don't choose to be a medic, but they actually end up enjoying it, and they get really good at it, and they're curious. They want to learn more, and they continue to hone their craft, and they become, I would say, like a PA. And the reason why I say this is where I felt like I was a PA was when I was not on the team, because you're only, especially at the time I was in, it was the surge. And so we weren't doing sustained like civilian, like JSAT operations or, like 7th Group Columbia, where they're going there for 6 months at a time for a quote combat deployment, but they're in the jungle doing some serious medicine, wilderness medicine and whatnot. So they're really honing their skills as a medic. As a guy in combat, you're honing your trauma skills for sure. But what is it called? Prolonged field care was kind of new when I was in there. And now it's like the thing, because especially for guys that are remote, you're not in combat theaters anymore. You're out in the middle of nowhere. You're doing, other operations outside of, quote, war, contingency operations that aren't war. You need to hone those PA skills, nursing skills and whatnot, which is the latter half of the Q course, of the medic portion of the Q course. So when I was in Iraq as a contractor, I mean, I was doing PA work. We're doing, whether it be running the clinic as just sick call, which would be like a quick, like an emergency department takes, or urgent care. That's a PA, right? Or whether we're doing, I did a full-blown surgery to remove a lipoma out of a Ugandan. The lipoma was on the back of his head, the size of a cabbage ball, not like a softball, like a cabbage ball. Looked like he had 2 heads, man. And we were in country. I had another actual PA with me. It was another 18 Delta. And then we tackled it together. And I mean, there wasn't anything he was doing that I didn't know. And there wasn't anything I was doing that he didn't know. I mean, it wasn't, one thing I learned working next to him that I think PAs are really, really good at, and where you really get your skills honed in school, is understanding lab work, right? So I think Deltas out of the Q course, we do lab work. We do microscope work. We certainly know how to read them, but we don't really do enough to the level that you would say, oh yeah, you're at the level of a PA, being able to understand not only what you're looking at, but the chemical, the biochemical or biochemistry behind it, and what you need to do to change his blood work, to change his the results of his blood lab. So I think that's kind of the distinction for an MD. PA school is the first 2 years of medical school, essentially. So I can see where that MD might say that, but if that MD, and maybe he's an 18 Delta, were to go with an 18 Delta on prolonged field care out in the middle of nowhere for 6 months, I think it's indistinguishable from a PA. On my deployment, I did a debridement, put a guy under anesthesia by myself with my 18 Bravo under anesthesia, did a debridement on one of our Iraqi assets, if you will, who got shot, was unable to go to the hospital for fear of being killed. And so we're like, all right, let's do it. So I was one of the lucky 18 Deltas that got to do overseas legit surgery on one of my indig. And you tell me that's not PA work? That's PA work, man. There's no paramedic putting anybody under anesthesia. MDs put dudes under anesthesia. Nurse practitioners, as a nurse anesthetist, put dudes under anesthesia. PAs do debridements and minor surgery under the supervision of an MD. So no, I would wholeheartedly disagree and say it would be dependent on that particular 18 Delta.
I think he meant the school portion.
Oh, the school portion?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think. No, they basically they do like a very brief couple weeks on each of those things within PA school, but they don't spend near enough time. The emphasis is not medical.
Yeah,
right?
you can pick up all the experience. Like we can just stand next to somebody and absorb their experience, it seems like. But the school work, he goes, oh no, fuck. They expect all this shit from you.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, the PA, no, the 18 Delta course SFMS portion, which is the PA medical portion of the course, is enough to make you dangerous. Yeah. It's just enough to make you, like, literally, like an 18 Delta without humility would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. Like, and
they're dead.
Yeah, and they're dead because you didn't understand biochemistry well, right? You might be able to read a lab and you might be able to know how to look at a gram-negative or gram-positive bacteria under a microscope, but do you know what antibiotic you're going to give and what's the pathophysiology for what that does in the body and all of the second and third order effects and how to treat it? And do you have the experience? No, man, you got to, like, we literally, as 18 Deltas, we have the ability to call back to the mainland while we're overseas and be like, hey man, I need a consult. So we'll call a battalion surge and be like, I need a consult. I'm dealing with this bug, or I got this, I got appendicitis, and can I do this? Right? You get, like, the surge is like, I don't know, let's talk. Like, walk me through it. And they'll come up with a plan. They're like, I don't know, I think you should probably medevac this guy. Like, or yeah, go for it.
It's a good thing you called. You were going to Leavenworth.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you get told you're going to be a Delta, but it sounds like you enjoyed becoming a Delta and being an 18 Delta.
I enjoyed everything about being a Delta.
We'll call it, you do some
it's the GOAT lab
training.
Man.
Yeah.
The GOAT lab.
Yeah, you do some excellent training. But
I like that because I love animals.
It will stick with you for the rest of your life. That is some stuff you'll never forget.
Yeah.
And I could say that as a Charlie, like, oh, fuck, nothing's going to bother me now. Fuck. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
So, well, it's good that you like what you're doing. Like, I liked what I was doing. And a lot of guys did. It was kind of a prerequisite to pass the course, right? It's like, yeah, I really enjoy this. So, but you started this whole process. We're like 2.5 years on now, wanting to get into the fight, and now you're coming into being in the 18 Delta, and we're getting towards the end of the course. How are you feeling about getting into the fight as a Delta, as a Green Beret? Now you're starting to look like you're going to get to a team. How are you feeling now?
Man, you feel pretty confident, right? Your brain, that as an 18 Delta, this is part of Sergeant Stubbe's pitch was like, hey man, you're not called into action that much, right? But when it is, it's a freaking emergency. It's all like you're the god of that situation, and they absolutely are dependent on your skill set to save their life. And there's nothing more with more gravitas on a team when you're called for your MOS. Your MOS gets called, right? And so I felt confident about my skills. I knew that I graduated one of the top in the class as far as grades go. Actually, I think I was top of the class as far as GPA, but the only reason I didn't get it, my buddy Yaboa, this Ganon, was it? Yeah, it was him. Ganon, he was the team. What do you call it? The class. What do you call it when you win the
Valedictorian,
whatever honor grad?
honor graduate, yeah,
Honor grad.
okay.
He was the honor grad. Yeah, I recycled my EMTB because I failed the EMTB national registry test. I didn't fail it. I got below a 75, whatever it was. And I had to retake it. So if you have to retake a test because you failed, you're automatically disqualified at the end for honor grad. So, but my GPA was the highest, and all of my practicals, with the exception of the EMTB portion, first time goes, like the trauma lanes, first time go, SFMS, first time go on labs. So I did great. I was a high performer in the medical portion of the course. And then we got to Robin Sage and SEER school and all that. I finished out. I mean, I was the best shape of my life, man. I was a stud. Like I'm a smaller guy. I came into the Army probably weighing $150, got out of the Q course weighing about 205. So, and like right now I weigh 160. I'm small. But like Q course weight, team weight, I was just a little, I packed quite a punch. So coming out of the Q course, strongest ever been in my life. I've always been, like a generalist physically as well. And, flexible, fast, grease guy, can get into small places, can climb, can swing. I could do anything and carry my weight, carry anybody else. I was just strong. So coming out knowing that, like, all right, I know my skill set's good. I know I'm physically strong. I'm going to, destroy the PT test, whatever the team sergeant gets me. Hopefully, I got a good team sergeant. And sure enough, man, when I got out, I felt like I was prepared. I was ready. And I talk at this point, I think towards the end of the Q course, you're talking to cadre, and they're like, if they're from your group, they're looking at you being like, I might need to call somebody and let this team know to pick him up, or might need to call somebody, hey, you need to watch out for this guy. At this point, you're already developing a reputation, especially if they already know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Right. So, and some of these guys are going to be team sergeants when they're done with SWIC. So, I was confident. I spent time with the cadre in language school, after Robin Sage, and just saying like, hey, what do I need to do to be successful when I get to a team? That's like a lot of guys didn't do that. They were like ready and done. When I got done with a phase, I would always, because of that cadre at SOPSI, right, it pulled me aside on a counseling statement. I was like, all right, I got a lot to learn. And these guys, I knew once you proved yourself at whatever station you were at in that Q course, the cadre wanted to see their work, their people succeed at their training, right? That's what an SF dude does. Like I'm training the trainer kind of guy and force multiplier. So at the end of that phase, when they've weeded them out and trained their guy, they're happy for you. They're like, move on to the next phase. See you downrange. That's what they say, right? See you downrange. So I would always take a moment and go to that cadre and say, hey, first of all, thanks for training me. And what do I need to do to be successful when I get to a team? And that's all you got to ask. So for people that are maybe listening, for like they're considering or they're in a Q course, man, take that opportunity seriously. That cadre's got a lot of wisdom to share with you. He's been around. So at the end of the day, at the end of the Q course, those questions get a lot more in depth, and you're networking. At that point, you're networking, right? So, yeah, I was ready. I was ready, man.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's important to make that distinction that like you're going to go work with these people in a few weeks. Like you're going to
Right,
be in group. They're going to rotate out of SWIC. They're not permanent fixtures.
right,
And they're just, if they're just like us, it's me. Like me
right,
now is them then. Like,
right. We're all the
that's,
same avatar, right? We're all the same sort of what's the word? Archetype.
yeah.
Archetype is a better word.
And it's just people. Like I posted a
Hmm.
reel last night of Paul Heights, fifth group guy. And we were talking about what's going through your mind at selection or funny stories when he was a cadre. He's like, yeah, we just give people nicknames. And there was this guy named Squidward, and yeah, we kept track of him through the course, and he's
Yeah,
always out there with his big ass head. And I was like, here, listen up, candidate. This is what's going through your cadre's head while you're sucking dick at Land Nav.
yeah. That's right.
They're just normal people. And I don't know. I don't think I had that approach of any proactive. It was show up, pass, go get hammered. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
and
I
and
mean,
that
and
was
the
it.
other, well, think about this: the environment too is we were all deploying, and dudes were getting killed left and right.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
true.
was a much more everybody understood. Like, may not see you again. I got plenty of buddies that I went to Q course with, and unfortunately, God rest their souls, um, didn't make it back, man. So and cadre, there's cadre that didn't make it back. My SUT cadre I was telling you about, one of them he's gone. He got killed in the Philippines, of all places.
Who was it?
Shaw,
Is
oh
it Jack
Shaw,
or Shaw?
Shaw,
Shaw. Yeah, his
Shaw.
picture was in my hallway. Uh,
Yeah,
Interesting. From this
yeah. He's my
show.
SUT. He's my SUT cadre. The one of the ones that was
So,
like, tell the NCOs get these guys out. He's one of them.
so yes, killed in the Philippines, roadside bomb. I have had the team that was there at that time, the team that was there before that happened, the team I believe that was there when it happened in another place, and I had the guys that on here, his team went and killed those dudes that set that bomb,
Good, good.
and then ran into the family of, I'm not sure if Martin or Shaw, in Oklahoma, and I think it was Oklahoma, and got to sit down with the family and tell them what they did to
Good.
go after the people. So yeah, that I think it was um, 18 Echo or 18 Alpha Fitness,
Mm,
Kevin Edgerton. They were the team that went out and killed those motherfuckers.
that's
So
good.
yeah, and then they got to tell
Yeah,
the family about it too. So that's a
yeah.
story you didn't think you were going to get for your
No, I
day
didn't know
today.
that. I had no idea, man. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I had no idea about that. And Shaw, he was a dickhead to all of us. But at the end of SUT, it was like, see you downrange, because we were all going overseas, man. He's like, well done, see you down. I mean, he shook our hand, and he's one of those guys. What do I need to do to be successful? We all, I had a lot of animosity with my cadre those first couple of weeks, but at the end of it, and then looking back now, I understand what they were doing. I understand what they were doing. So God rest his soul, man. Shaw was a great, great NCO, great cadre. And the other one was the other cadre. He's still alive, obviously, but I can't remember. He was an Irish guy. Oh, oh man, I can't remember his freaking name. Such an Irish name and red hair, freckles, and everything. He's hilarious. But Shaw's partner.
Jack Martin.
No, Jack Martin. I knew he was in the 18 Delta course with me.
Yeah, it was Jack and Chris in the Philippines.
Mm,
And
I
then
didn't
there,
know. I didn't know Jack died in the Philippines from in the same roadside bomb. Jack Martin was in a Q course with me as a Delta. He's a Delta.
yeah,
Blonde headed dude.
Chris
Chris
Shaw.
Shaw, Jack Martin.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit this out because this was the only board question Sergeant Major asked me. Yeah, here.
So they were together.
Yeah. So, and then maybe I won't edit it out, but that was the only board question because we had 4 pictures in the hallway: Jack Martin, Chris
Oh
Shaw,
man.
Jahan Park, and Chapman. in Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Special Forces Group. And and then Sergeant Major now, he's the SOC South Sergeant Major, Sean Arntz, was there in the vehicle. Or not in the vehicle, but he was on the team with them as well. So
Yeah, Jack. He wasn't one of my like good buddies in the Q course, but he was in our. He was either in my class or adjacent class because we all the 18. You'll know this. I mean, all the 18 deltas spend so much time with each other. We probably have the best network of SF dudes, I think, just because we spent so much time with each other. But yeah, I knew Jack died. I knew he got killed. I didn't realize he was with Chris Shaw. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right outside.
And the same incident, right?
Right outside the base. Yeah, right outside the base.
Same incident?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah, that was a rough. Those early 2000s, man, we lost some dudes, man. It sucks. Yeah, of all the weird places too. At 5th group, there's a couple guys got killed in Jordan a few years ago.
3rd group, yeah, I had on Brian Black's widow.
That was in
17 in Niger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Like for anybody listening that's hasn't been in the field, not just Green Berets, special operations in every country in the world.
We are.
You know, you don't know where you're going to get sent to. So you can get sent to some shithole. You could get the Just Mag Thai position in Bangkok, Thailand, and be living at the Ritz-Carlton for 3 years. Or you can be in Bangladesh or or you could be in a fucking dump in Niger with no roads and no cell service. So it's a great experience. You're going to travel the world, but you don't know where the fuck you're going to go. You can go to some great places, or you can go to some really shitty ones as well. And there's always a chance of not coming home. And from training too, like me, you can go to Oceanside and almost get fucking killed on some waves, or running around the motor pool, and somebody will run you over or try to run you over because they're not fucking paying attention. So
I mean, there's a few guys that have died in the scuba course, and there's obviously a few guys that have died doing military free fall. You know, it's that's just training.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
You think it's just going to be a fun day, and next thing you know, you're in a nightmare. You know,
but as we said, that's the job.
That's right.
That's it. And
that's what we signed up for.
And did we sign up again? It's kind of shitty, morbid to think about, but like it's a fun career. The people that you're around, you might not all get along, but man, you would do anything to just stay around the guys.
Oh man, I was so fortunate to get to my team at 5th group and had the best team, especially my first deployment. And we were probably we were the best team in the company for sure. And some other teams in the company might disagree with me, but I felt like we were probably the best team in the company. And there's no better time of my life other than having kids, family life. But the quality of men that the Q course produces is the raw material for the right leader to hone into the absolute best team environment that a man could ever want and even know that exists. Like it's not even, most men don't even realize how good it could be, especially if they've never had that kind of, quality team with a good leader. It's irreplaceable, irreplaceable, it can't be replicated in any other environment. Maybe sports, maybe pro athletes, but even then they're getting paid. So it can't be replicated in any other institution that I'm aware of, other than warfighting, special operations specifically.
But there's a pinnacle in every aspect of life, right? Mm-hmm. So, special operations, going to do the dance. I didn't get to do the dance, but I've gotten better with it because that dance can look like a lot of different things. Like
that's right.
Even embodying what it means to be a Green Beret. And then I like to think maybe I got to do that, or maybe I'm doing it now. and that's even more fulfilling. Like getting to do cool shit in a polo is fucking very rewarding.
Look, let me be clear.
Yeah.
I think the guys, when I'm saying that, I'm not saying that in context because I was able to deploy, right? I'm saying that in context of just the guys, just the guys. I was so fortunate to be on a team with the right mix of guys and the right leader, and it's the absolute, and regardless of deployment, doesn't matter. When you get the right team, it's the pinnacle. But even if you don't, you're still around the best guys. Maybe a little bit of a not the greatest mix temperaments, right? Or maybe not a great leader, because I've had the opposite as well, where I had a really poor leader, specifically team sergeant. I'm saying leader, I'm talking about team sergeant. Um, but no, I mean, my team sergeant went on to become group sergeant major, and then my captain went on to do very specialized things in very specialized units outside of fifth group. So I had an incredible experience, not just when we were deploying, but just being the guys in the team room. It was incredible. Best time of my life. Best time of my life. And I certainly didn't spend most of my time in fifth group. I spent most of my time with 20th. I did 15 years total. 8 of those were active duty. Well, 6 of those were active duty, 2 reserve, and then, right, 8 plus, so then 7 guard. So about even, actually, about even, a little more in a guard time, but I did all my deployments active duty, and I did a J set in the guard and a bunch of other, training. So yeah, it's no man, it's our community. The archetype's the same. So don't ever look down on your service, man.
Oh,
Don't
no, I used
ever.
to. I used to, but that was,
No,
feeling sorry for myself.
no,
I'm
man.
okay with it now.
Yeah,
But
don't
like,
ever look down. No, and the guys that have done like the guys that have, especially the guys that have um, lost teammates or got a Purple Heart or um, I promise you, they probably would trade that time for just polo time any day. You know, 100%.
I'm well aware
Yeah,
of the benefits that I've been through. It's
yeah,
just an interesting thing in your mind because you're
yeah.
you're at the end of the day, you're only competing with yourself because it's just you in there with your thoughts and everything, and you just have time to think about decisions you could have made or made differently, or what if I did this and then did that, and you know, I've gotten so much better with it. I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. Like and I say to that pinnacle, right? You got to find this path is blocked off. I got to go this way. As I said before we started recording, I'm one of the strongest, fittest people,
That's
veteran
right.
wise, you'll ever meet. And like that pinnacle, I've been doing some stuff in the gym where I was like, this is amazing what I've been able to do. And
Hmm.
this is all after my service. And some of the things I'm doing is unbelievable to me, and I'm doing them. I hope everybody can find that little thing or that big thing in their life and feel so good about it, because it's a shame if you can't
That's
to
right.
put in the time and the effort, like to do something. You go, I never thought I would be able to do that. When you even surprise yourself and you get to it and you go, I'm happy with where I'm at, and the stuff I'm doing, I go, I finally got to the place I never thought I would be able to get to. And I was like, let's just enjoy it right now and be happy with it, because it's not going to last forever, but enjoy it. Which I've come to learn about from interviewing people on this show is we didn't do when we were in the service. We didn't
Mm,
stop and look around and enjoy it because maybe there wasn't any time, because we're just striving for that next thing, that next mission or school or achievement. And or it's just you're swept up in how good things are that you can't
yeah,
stop and appreciate it. But now I do stuff and I go, this might never happen again, but man, at least I'm able to stop and go, that's fucking impressive.
yeah.
Good job.
No, it's absolutely, man. Yeah, it's. I look back with pure. joy at what I've been able to do. No regrets. Even the getting separated for the pandemic stuff, it all worked out. I was extremely bitter for like 2 years, but it all worked out, man. And I look at my life now, like I said at the beginning, I feel like I'm the wealthiest man in the world and all the things that matter, dude. And what shaped me as a man was being an SF guy. And that's been with me forever. And my best friends in the world are SF guys. And that's part of the blessing of the community we have. And it's also part of the why, like a lot of our guys, our community, we struggle in the civilian world, especially if they're working corporate. Oh, you're not around high performers like you were talking about. And one thing I know for sure, this is why I don't work. I think that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because you can only take so long of being around people that aren't high performers before you have to get away from them, because you can't grow unless you're around other high performers. And most SF guys, it doesn't end. I don't know any SF dudes that just sit back and drink beer and chill. I don't know any like that. I don't know if you do, but
Well,
I don't know any.
there's this line in this show that I've kind of stolen. There's a lot of guys that get out that can't bring themselves to kill themselves, but they can bring themselves to drink themselves to death, and they sure try to do that at some point in their life, whether it's before they get out, after, during their transition, or something like that. So majority of my enlisted guests have gotten to that point. So we all fall in that kind of pit of transitional despair. So
Yeah,
there is that
yeah,
that's out there. But when people pull themselves out of that, no, I got to be back. I got to be who I was again. That the call is too loud in their ears for them to
that's right.
ignore.
That's
So
right. That's right. Yeah, it's good. Transitional despair. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. Oh, I remember that. I'm glad I'm past that part. Oof. Now I've got kids and family, so that's what keeps me sane, even though it drives me nuts too.
well, it's good. If I saw this meme the other day, and it said I didn't want to work 8 hours a day anymore, so I traded it in for a job where I work 24/7.
Yeah, yeah,
And I went, yeah, like
yeah,
I'm in between work right now, but I'm at my desk or on which the downside of what I'm doing, I'm glued to my phone
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
It's a
But
damn demon, man. That
but
phone's a
I'm
demon.
having so much fun. Like,
Yeah,
and if somebody's being negative, I just ignore them, or I try to and not
yeah,
let them get to me. But I'm having so much fun. And like, I wake up, I can't wait to put these reels up or meet new people, get new followers and shit like that. So,
yeah.
but it's all the time. It's all the fucking time. And you've got a farm, and which that never ends. They can wake you up. Some
No,
animal could start howling in the middle of the night,
dude,
or something's trying to,
we lost a sheep last night, a lamb.
like,
We
it
lost
got
a
away or
lamb.
got eaten.
No, it got eaten. It's the second one in the last week, so we got to do something about it. We thought we'd gotten rid of predators. So yeah, absolutely. All that to say, there's absolutely it doesn't end. I got a greenhouse I'm growing stuff in. I've got to work ground here soon because we're about to plant corn for the corn. It's this time of year is busy. May through June, busy, busy, but good
Um,
busy. There's nothing better than being out there on a tractor, dude. It's
no,
fun.
I
Working
remember
ground.
going
That's
out
what.
and bucking hay as a kid.
Yeah,
I didn't live, or we weren't associated with the people that owned the farm. We just lived on the farm,
yeah,
and I would go out like, "Hey, can I come out and buck hay?" Or
yeah.
that people ask me, they're like, "How do you have such disproportionately large forearms?" And it's like, because I could hold 4 bales as a kid like this,
That's
and
right.
they just built up. I saw this little kid running around with these big ass forearms.
Yeah.
So that's why farmers are always stronger and shit than everybody else. But yeah,
Oh
it's
man,
great.
farm kids are legit.
Yeah. I always they just bounce off the ground, get back up, run off,
Yeah,
get
they're
kicked by a
legit.
horse, fly off. Oh, he's
Yeah,
fine. What
yeah,
do you mean he's fine? He looks like he's dead. Ah, he'll get up.
yeah.
But going back for a second, you wanted to get into the fight, then you got in the fight. How did that affect you? And was it what you thought it was going to be?
Uh, you mean like combat?
Yeah.
or like just get into a team?
No, I mean, you said you enlisted because you wanted to, fear of missing out, right? And because
Yeah.
nobody knew how long this shit was going to go on. In 2001, it goes on for 22 years or whatever, right? 22, 23 years. Um, and then it took the long roundabout way to get there. And then it's finally time to go to the big dance. How did you take that, on an ODA going to combat as an 18 Delta?
I mean, initially it was like, hell yeah, let's go. But I mean, yeah, obviously things change when you start getting shot at. It gets a little more, it's like, oh, or when people start getting shot, um, and then, of course, when people start dying, it sucks. And you're like, oh, this is the part that freaking sucks, I think when you're in it, you're trained. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of guys that had combat experience on my team when I got there, which is the case for most guys in the early 2000s, right? I mean, that team had already deployed. That team, I was on 572, which is now 5312, and that team's history started with. Gosh, I wonder if I'm allowed to even say this because I don't know if it's declassified, but um,
Just
I'm going to say it, and
err
we'll
on the
just
side of caution.
yeah. Well, oh, damn it. Well, let's just say that team has a rich history during the invasion of Afghanistan. We'll just say that. That's pretty general enough.
I had
Yeah,
Perry Blackburn on here, and he got into a story, and he's like, and then all of a sudden we're in Pakistan. I was like, "Are you allowed
yeah,
to say that?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure, fuck it."
yeah. I don't think it's a big deal, but I know that they're not. I'm thinking of my old team sergeant. If I should say it. I don't know. Look. I tell you what. We'll talk about it. I'll just mention it because it's cool. And if you need to edit it out, you just edit it out. We'll do some research and see if we can find this story. If we can't find it, it's probably still classified. But essentially, what happened with my team and the guy who was eventually become our team sergeant because he stayed on 7-2. He was on 7-2, became team sergeant 7-2, later group sergeant major. Yeah. So they were in. I believe they were in Bosnia. No, or Kazakhstan. No. They're in Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. One of the stands. All right. And they were on a J set. Okay. When 9/11 happened. So they already had all their Connex full with them. They already had all their kit, they had everything with them. So guess who gets the call? That team. So when you read about like Triple Nickel and all these other teams and 7-4, and because their stories are kind of told, they are told. They're the ones that get all the spotlight. But the first team that was actually in Afghanistan, along with CIA, was 7-2 because they were already halfway there. So they literally got the call. We're like, pack your shit. You're going to Afghanistan,
Is
and
this
they were
Jawbreaker?
there. This
Is
is
that part of
what
Jawbreaker? Is that part of Jawbreaker?
I don't know. I don't know the name of the operation, or I don't know. I just know my team sergeant was there, and he's the one who told us the story. And he said this hasn't been classified yet, which is why declassified, which is why you don't ever hear the story of 7-2. But if anybody tells you that Triple Nickel or 7-4 was the first one in, go tell them to fuck themselves. That's what Dave would always say. So Dave would share his story, and yeah, they were the first ones in. And he would talk about Wild Bill, who was the CIA guy, ex-fifth. I think he was a fifth group dude. Wild Bill is he was old when he was in Afghanistan. So I think so. Dave's team 7-2 linked up with Wild Bill, and they were the first to set foot in Afghanistan. That's basically the gist of it. And they did some really cool stuff, and I won't go into all that stuff because that's probably enough. But that's that's my team sergeant. And so when I got to the team, he was there for all the glory days of fifth group, which was you couldn't ask for better SF dudes to be around than fifth group in the early days of Afghanistan, right? These are the horseback guys, horse soldiers. So I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by anybody that was new from the infantry had already seen combat. We had a ranger. We had a couple, I think we had an 82nd guy. No, 101st, a couple 101st guys. And then we had x-rays, and we had Dave. And then another fifth group guy that had been there a while. So we were loaded with experienced dudes. So I was very, very fortunate to go into that and not be too concerned about, first of all, does everybody know what they're doing? Because I don't, right? I was the FNG. And at that time, the FNG, we had to do FNG shit, you know? So, I think I had to carry around a freaking like a special backpack with all the FNG guy backpack, which was full of artifacts from different deployments, which I didn't know what the different artifacts were, but they were hilarious. As you get to, so what happens is, at least in our team, the way it's set up is, and we're probably getting way off tangent, by the way, just stop me if you want.
Oh, we're good.
All right. So, as the new guy on my team, the first thing I had to do was I wasn't allowed in the team room until I brought a case of beer.
Obviously.
Yeah. And I remember showing up to the company, and I showed up to the company, and the first person I talked to was Hank Marsh, Sergeant Major Marsh, which I don't know what he's up to these days, but he'd be a good guy to talk to. And he was dressed in full kit with a what are the police batons they use?
Baton.
Whatever, yeah. And so I showed up in my, my clean uniform, all, because, fifth group's got the reputation of putting the conventional and unconventional. So you better look like an 82nd guy when you show up. And so I'm looking sharp. I got my gear, and Sergeant Major's at the other end of the hall, and he's just standing at the other end with the baton, just doing this in his hand. And the next thing you know, he's just walking to me, staring at me. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm walking to the hallway, and he just charges me, man. And next thing you know, I'm in the middle of the freaking company hallway. Which I didn't know his name at this time. I didn't even know he was a sergeant major. I just look, and this motherfucker's coming. He's a big guy. I mean, Hank Marsh is not a little guy. And I'm wrestling the sergeant major. He's put me in a damn chokehold, and I did the best I could, but he had me pinned within probably a couple minutes, probably less than a minute. There's nothing. I'm like punching him. He's got kit, so I'm punching armor. There's he's got a baton. He like beats me, gets me in a chokehold. I'm like, all right, I freaking tap out. And he's like, welcome to the company. What's your name? And of course he was expecting me, I'm sure. But I was like, Soldinie, Staff Sergeant Soldinie, And he's like, all right, come on. And we go to his office, and he gives me, and I don't remember the whole conversation, but I remember I was smoked. And he's like, all right, I'm going to send you to Dave Lance's team, and he'll take care of you. In fact, he'll probably like you if you can perform, because he's a Delta. But just remember, he's like, but this guy doesn't drink beer. And he told me that this guy doesn't drink beer. So what he wants is Bartles and James. He likes the Bartles and James. And it was like a local winery. It wasn't Bartles and James. Maybe it was. He told me he liked this stuff from the local winery, which is like a wine cooler thing in Clarksville. And then he's like Bartles and James. He doesn't drink beer. He's not much of a drinker, but he drinks the wine coolers. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm like taking notes, and I'm taking notes about a lot of stuff. I don't remember half the shit he told me. I remember what I needed to bring the team sergeant. And I remember going back to the barracks, getting my shit. I remember seeing one of the guys in the hallway. It was Gary Mitchell. And he knew I was, and he was kind of hitting me up. He's like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, we're 7-2. He's like, don't come here till you get some beer or something. He's like, you didn't bring any beer? And I was like, nah. He's like, fucking rookie move, man. He's like, fucking new guy, didn't bring any beer. So I go back, and I just kept thinking to myself, who the fuck drinks wine coolers? And I was like, God dang it. If I don't, I'm in a pickle. So I'm like, I bet you that sergeant major is fucking me hard right now, man. So I was like, I think this is a trap. So I went and bought Budweiser, Bud Light, Michelob, and then I bought some fucking Bartles and James. I couldn't find that whatever winery bullshit Sergeant Major told me. And I show up and I'm like, I was like, well, I'm not going to keep all this shit in here. I'm not going to bring it all at once. So I just brought the Budweiser, okay? And I had the other shit like staged in case they're like, oh, you didn't bring the fucking XYZ, right? Especially the wine coolers. I was like, man, there's no fucking way those dudes drink wine coolers. So I roll in there. I bring the Budweiser. And, I didn't meet Dave at this point, but the team guys are just kind of sitting me down like, cool. They're like, all right, good on you. I wasn't allowed to drink a beer at this point, but they like took the beer, popped it open, sat down, started just popping me with questions. And it was a full blown interrogation, Second thing they said was, all right, so the next time you come in, the next thing you got to bring to us is bring us your Yarbrough knife. And we get to keep it. I'm like, oh, fuck. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll bring my Yarbrough knife. Finally, Dave shows up. He comes in. I think he was PT. He was, working, doing some bullshit. He comes in and he looks in. He's like, what kind of beer did you get? And all the guys go, Budweiser, Dave. They're like, oh, good, my favorite. And I was like, motherfucker, I knew it. And sure enough, like we're about an hour in and Hank Marsh rolls in. And he's still got his kit on, and he's just running around with kit all the time. I don't know what, and this was like the second day when I brought my shit in. So he comes in and he's like, oh, Dave, how's it? You like your FNG? And he's like, yeah, he brought Budweiser. He's like, he did. And he kind of looked at me. Sergeant Major kind of looked at me. He's like, oh, you didn't bring him the Bartles and James? And Dave kind of looks at him like, what the fuck would he bring? And I said, Sergeant Major. He's like, you mean to tell me you didn't listen to what I was saying to you and bring him some Bartles and James? And I said, actually, Sergeant Major, I did buy that. But, I had so much shit to carry. I just brought in the 12th, the case of Budweiser first. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, you son of a bitch. He kind of laughed. He's like, all right, you didn't fall. He's like, good job. Good job. He's like, I thought for sure you're going to bring him Bartles and James. And Dave was like, he was going to bring you Bartles and James. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, you'd have been fucked if you'd brought me Bartles and James. I was like, yeah, I figured that. So I dodged a nice bullet because from Hank Marsh, he almost fucking got me, man. There's always the F&G jokes, man, the F&G practical jokes. And, you hear about them. And I was like, this has got to be a fucking joke. No way am I bringing I bought that shit. I was like, there's no fucking way I can bring this into a team room.
No.
So, but yeah, and then that first team indoctrination, they gave me a FNG bag full of shit that I didn't know what it was. It was full of like, a rubber duck. Rubber chicken was in there, Spam, and they, I can't remember all the other bullshit. It was full of shit. It was pretty heavy. I had to carry that motherfucking thing around all over the place, all over the fucking, I could not be seen without it. Okay. And, I had to give him my Yarbrough knife. The Yarbrough knife went on the wall and it was the new guy knife. So there was always a big display of our team and they needed a knife to make the guy that was the new guy before me got to take his knife off the wall and got to give me the bag. Right. And he was like, and that was Rob. I believe that was Rob Davison. And Rob and I are still good. I haven't talked to him a while, but he's still a good buddy of mine. And, so he gave me the shit and he's like, oh, I got my knife back. And I remember him like new guy was like, hey man, let me just square you away so you don't do anything stupid. He's like, well, first of all, can you PT? I was like, oh, I'm going to crush PT. He's like, good, because Dave likes PT and he's going to put a bunch of extra shit and they're all going to try to run you in the fucking ground. I was like, okay, cool, I'll be ready. And sure enough, that next day, I was ready. I showed up early. I was the first one there and they were like, let's fucking go. And they did a run and it was fast. And I kept up. I could go faster, but I was like, I'm not going to fucking show off. But I let the senior dude, it was Pick, we called him Pick. He set the pace and he could fucking run. And by the end of it, he's like, okay, cool, you can run. And then right after the run, I did a fucking PT test. So after the run, it's like, okay, dude. And so Dave was like, ready. He's like, all right, let's do your PT test. I'm looking at him like, motherfucker. So I just like, wore myself out. He's like, I'm going to do a PT test. And I was like, son of a bitch. I should have took it a little, I should have like not, gone so fast. And but I ended up I got 100% on the PT test in spite of being smoked. And so they put you through. And so then Dave was like, all right. So then he did the counseling. Once I passed the PT test, he's like, all right, cool. Most guys don't get 100% on the first go, but our rule for our team is if you get 100% on your PT test, you get a team shirt. So here's your team shirt. And so that was cool. So I was like the first guy in a while to get the team shirt, because most dudes, because they smoke you beforehand, they don't get the team shirt. But he's like, I can't break my fucking rule. So one guy was pissed because he still hadn't gotten his team shirt. He'd been there for like at least a year and a half. And it was like, there's some dudes that just aren't good at things, right? This dude was a bigger guy, couldn't quite get the 100% on the run. It was 100% on each category.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All
Push-ups,
right?
sit-ups, run.
Yeah. You couldn't just get a 300, right? You had to get 100%, not just a 300 PT score, but 100% on each category. So poor Mitch, he couldn't, I think it was the run. It was either run or sit-ups. He's a bigger guy, strong fucker, man. And just couldn't get 100% on each category, 300 PT score. But anyway, he was fucking pissed. So he gave me a lot of shit that first year because I had a T-shirt before him. And all the other guys would give him shit, like, oh, fucking you guys got a T-shirt. So Gary was 18 Charlie, and he was always pissed off because he was always doing logistics. 18 Charlies that hate their lives. And this because they inventory and they're just pissed. But yeah,
I was a fucking killer at inventories.
Yeah. Mitch and I were still really good friends. We got some really good stories together, but I'm going to send him this podcast link when it's done. He'll love it. He'll remember all this shit. So yeah, that was my first time on a team. And like I said, I was prepared, at least the best that I could. And I knew that I didn't know, because I was an extra, I didn't know shit about combat, because I'd never been. The only thing I knew about weapons was what I learned at Q course, which is basically jack shit. And but I knew that like I was in shape. I knew that I was a team guy, meaning I'm going to play well. I learned a hard lesson early on, right? Always a team guy, but I was just too focused at SOPC. But and I knew I needed to be prepared to bring value to the team, right? So, and the only thing I could bring value to was show them that I'm in good shape, show them that I'm here to work, be fucking quiet, and just do what they say and try to have a good time, right? Like you, like just, these guys are all studs, are all serious dudes or SF dudes, but everybody wants to have a good time. And so when I could show them that like I could laugh with them and take shit from them, like, they'd give me shit and I'd give it right back and but stay humble. Don't try to show off, but just fucking stay humble, perform. I felt like I got, and we were deploying within 2 or 3 months. So I felt like they'd already kind of taken me in and were ready to train me. So when our PMT came up, we went to Texas, in the desert of Texas, out at Fort Bliss. And I mean, I was just a sponge. I spent the most time with my Bravos just learning the guns, particularly the 50 cal, learning my own weapon, doing constant SUT stuff, constantly in the shoot house. And then when it came time to do medical stuff, of course the teams hate doing medical stuff. Nobody wants to do that shit. So I did my best to make it fun and competitive, which I did, and they enjoyed it and brief. Like, we did our shit and we were fucking done. Let's move on to weapon shit, right? So they were happy about that. They didn't turn into some weird lecture. And man, my team was great. And Dave was just an absolute fucking stud, man. Stud team sergeant, knew how to handle people, knew how to handle his team, and had the ethos of experience. Dave was just an absolute stud. Understand human terrain. And, what makes a good team sergeant is A, they know how to manage all the personalities and all the temperaments. And B, they know what the fuck they're doing. Right. And when you have that combination, and he picked, I think it also goes back to like Sergeant Major being able with personnel again, knowing his personnel and kind of feeling out. I felt like Hank was like, I think you'll fit in with this team. I don't know what his personnel board looked like, but there were a lot of empty. There's a lot of slots to fill at that time of year, that time of group. I could have gone to any team. So they all had one Delta. And so he sent me to Dave's team, and man, I'm so happy. I'm so happy because it was the best deployment. I learned so much, and I felt like that's where I felt like I became an SF dude. Was um, after that deployment, I felt like, okay, I became an SF dude, and then eventually we got a new guy, and I got to do the same thing, hand over my Yarbrough, hand over my FNG bag, and be like, let me know what you need, but I'm done with this shit. I had to carry that during deployment. I had to have it. I had to have it in the Humvee with me when we were going on missions. I mean, oh God, dude. And it was part of my sensitive item check, right? My 18 Charlie and 18 Bravos. All right, Rick, part of my inventory sheet was a fucking FNG bag. It was on there on our, what's the name of that form? The inventory form. 1059? No. The fucking Charlie form. I don't know what the name of that damn form is, but I should. The inventory form and sensitive item form.
Yeah, I forget. I mean, they're still on my boxes out in the.
Yeah. But that was on my fucking sensitive item sheet. And so I had to always sign for that shit and always account for it. So right there with my medical stuff. So it was hilarious to have that arranged. But I made it through the whole deployment, not losing that thing. And then, of course, by the end of the deployment, we added a few things. So what I find out was like, this was for the fireside chats towards the end of deployments, where we're sitting around the team house. We're about to go home. We're about to rip out, and we got to just take a fucking break. Because I mean, our op tempo was insane, man. I mean, we were out every other fucking night doing raids, man. And never sleeping. You get a break here and there for a couple days just because you were just trashed, or we had a hard op, and then right back on the fucking, intel packets and who we're going after next. So, but at the end, we got to just make a lot of fires, sit up on the rooftops, watch the rockets, and prep for the next guy ripping in. And that's where we got to share the stories and get to hear stories from the invasion from Dave, or stories from other guys. We had a ranger on our team. We got to hear some stories from him. He'd be another good guy to have in your podcast. I'll reach out to him because he was actually, well, actually, I won't share any of that. I'll let him share that stuff. I had a great team, man. Great team with guys who did a lot of good stuff. And I'd say most of them are retired, but let's see. I think they're all retired now. They all just retired in like the last 12 to 36 months. Some of them x-rays and some of them like Dave. I don't know what Dave's up to. He should be retired by now. He should be way retired by now, but who knows what he's doing. Sergeant Major, you can stay it longer. But yeah, looking back on it after the deployments, I'm glad by the time I left 5th Group, I was toast. And meaning I just wasn't myself. Super, what's the words?
Run down.
Just run down, tired, irritated.
Yeah.
Really fucking irritated. The second deployment was not as good as the first. We had a different team sergeant with exact 180 of a team sergeant, exact opposite. One of the worst human beings I felt like in my life I'd ever met. A lot of team turmoil, a lot of team dynamics that just didn't go. It just was horrible. Not a fun deployment. And a couple guys died, not on my team, but in our company. Just not good. And I was fucking done. I just needed a break, and I had a choice to make. I'd already extended at that point, and I knew that the current leadership of my team, they wanted me, but they also knew I was kind of part of the old guard, if you will, the old team, right? And they had gotten a lot of new blood in, and the team sergeant was going to be fired, and the warrant was taken over. Our captain, who was a stud, was going to do bigger and better things. And a couple of my best friends that were on the team were getting moved. I just did not want to have to put myself under the thumb of that particular leadership. knowing that we were going to go on we're going to Afghanistan next. And nasty mission. I was like, you know what? I think I'm fucking done. I had literally dodged a bullet. And the last one was like, I think I'm just going to I need a break. And you can't take a break at fifth group. It's infinite deployments. All right. Those guys, I think they're finally done with infinite deployments, but I like my buddy Jason that just retired. I mean, I think he did 15 fucking deployments or something ridiculous like that. Something retarded like that, man. I mean, they were in the double digits, all of them, the guys that stayed in. And I was still single. I wanted to be married. I was 20. No, let's see. I was 28. No, I was like 31, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, after the course in your 30s.
Yeah, I was 31. So, and that's at the age where most guys kind of want to look for a wife. And I knew I needed to get out. And I wanted to do guard and contract, make some money so I could snag a lady. You know, you can't make a lot of money in the Army. You have no problem snagging ladies, but your pool of women is kind of, you're stuck in Clarksville, Tennessee, for crying out loud. So, your pool of ladies is small. I dated in Nashville, so I was able to get my pool expanded, but I knew I needed to kind of get my pool expanded. So, but by the time I got out, I was done, man. I was toast. I wasn't mental. I wasn't in danger of harming myself, but I definitely was depressed. I definitely was irritable, angry. And a lot of guys at that era had buddies die, kill themselves from the Q course. One of my good buddies in fifth group was with the Q course. He didn't kill himself. He OD'd, named Sam Green, another medic. He OD'd, got addicted to tramadol and then eventually narcs and then eventually died. And I was one of the guys that gave him tramadol early on because he ran out of tramadol in his end and came to me. I thought he was coming to me to this was before tramadol was regulated and was a sensitive drug, sensitive medical, one you had to account for on paper. I didn't realize he was using. So, I just needed a break, man. And that was just a rough time at fifth group. There's a lot of turnover. I was done. So that ended my fifth group story. And then I did contracting for 2 years, met Leah, got back in the guard, kind of got back on the horse, was much happier in the guard because I give myself space. Felt like I brought a lot of value to my team in the guard unit because I was a fifth group guy coming into 20th group. They didn't have a lot of guys that had deployed. And come to find out over those next few years, a lot of fifth group guys. Atterbury's full of, especially when we went from Chicago to Atterbury's full of fifth group guys that were, just kind of ready to kind of slow down. So,
that's the unit that I looked into going into.
Good unit.
Is that one? Who's Sergeant Major over there? But yeah, I know this. I was talking to the Sergeant Major down there. So yeah, that's why it sounded familiar.
Great
I know
unit.
them. Yeah.
The only, obviously the only thing that about that unit is when they kicked me out. But, those guys are great. They were doing what they had to do as far as leadership. They got orders to follow. I understood. I wish they were a little more savvy about it.
I got Sergeant Major's number right here if you want it. He'll take you back. They got a trip coming up here in a couple months.
No, training team or bust, man. That's I'll do it. If you need training team medic, I'm in. But other than that, no.
I'll give you Sergeant Major's number after this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. He probably wasn't he definitely wasn't the Sergeant Major that was part of the leadership that separated me. And actually I got around it because they were going to separate me. They were going to probably GOMAR. They were talking GOMAR at the time. But luckily they deployed in the midst of all this, all this chaos. And I obviously opted, I couldn't deploy because I wasn't green on my medical. And so they're like, you better get this stuff situated before we get back, because when you get back, you're done. We have to GOMAR you. We have to write a counseling statement. And I was like, all right, cool. So thankfully, because I was rear D, there was only 2 dudes me, Maddie, a couple training team, and then uh, I think the XO at the time, and I can't even remember the guy's name, but I was essentially helping S1. So I basically, me and one other guy, basically wrote up. I interstate transferred to Oklahoma because I was so desperate not to get GOMAR'd and not to get a less than honorable. And so Oklahoma at the time, the tag there, I don't know if you remember all this, but the tag was the only tag in the United States that was like, we will not separate our soldiers dishonorably for refusing the vaccine. And so Oklahoma's not too far away. I have, in-laws in Oklahoma. So I reached out to a unit there, and it was a Pogue unit. I mean, it was the Pogue of the Pogue, dude. I mean, it was horrible. So I reached out. They're like, yeah, we'll take you. And so I ended up ISTing. The XO signed off on it. So before my sergeant major got back, I was gone. Right. So, and which worked out for him because I don't think he wanted to do it, but he was a dickhead about it and was like, he was going to do it. The guys in Florida and Mississippi, the sergeant majors were like, we'll just, the Mississippi folks, I'm from Mississippi. So, and I tried to go there first, but they wouldn't let me go there. They weren't letting you trade between units within group because they knew like the Florida dudes and Mississippi dudes were like, we're not going to do that. We'll say we're going to do it, but we're not going to do it. But whereas the guys in unit out of Chicago and eventually Atterbury were not as, let's say, politically aligned with, North-South politics, we'll say, right? So they were a little less inclined to kind of push back. And for those you don't know, there are different politics within SF dudes too. We're not all, which is fine. They're all great guys. I'm okay with that. But it did almost have some consequences for me. So I was not able to go to Florida. I was not able to go to Mississippi. And so I IST'd to Oklahoma, went to a headquarter unit and was PTing with some Pogues, man. It was horrendous. I mean, good luck. I shouldn't say it was horrendous. It wasn't horrendous because of any way they treated me great. It's just I went from being in, the top 1% of the Army to being in the lowest percentage of the whatever National Guard Pogues, non-combat unit, right? And they looked at me like I was like a Greek god when I walked in there, like, oh, we have a green bean here, and the leadership, the local leadership didn't like me too much. Like, what the F are you doing here, dude? I'm like, hey man, look, I'm just here to weather the storm of this pandemic bullshit. And they're like, okay, got it. So you're going to go back? I was like, if they'll take me after all this, and if, but that stuff went on forever, man. It just now got adjudicated, right? So what happened in Oklahoma is they wouldn't let me re-enlist. So they wouldn't GOMAR me. They weren't going to force me out, but they were like, you have to re-enlist. But in order to re-enlist, you got to get this jab. So, we're not going to GOMAR you or dishonorably discharge you, but we're going to have to separate you. They're not going to let us re-enlist you. So that's eventually how I ended my career, was waiting for the Army to figure things out. And I just literally ran out of time. And the tag they were great about it. They're like, all right, you're just going to, see ya. It's your last drill. We're separating you, and no worries. You're going to have an honorable discharge, and we wish you the best. And that was great. That was fine by me. I was like, all right, well, I did the best I could. I avoided a dishonorable discharge. I avoided a GOMAR. And unfortunately, I went out with no celebration, with a Pogue unit that didn't know what to do with me. So I just showed up to drill every day and just like, what do you need? Let's go do some PT,
And now you got the farm and the pumpkins and the 77 acres and
yeah,
but it
it's
all
good.
worked.
Life is good, man.
Good.
Life is good,
Yeah,
So,
you did everything your country asked you to do, and you just ran out of time. Like I ran out of wherewithal. If I wish I knew this. If I knew all of the little tricks and things I know now, I'd still be in. I'd be
yeah.
doing have my little piece of the world. Be making friends with sergeant majors and shit and all over the place, trying to skip from one favorable position to the next to just stay in. But
Yeah.
That's gonna end eventually too. It's all gonna end anyway. So as long as you can get to a good place and get over that slump, it's good. You know,
Yeah. And
be
20th
happy.
group, 20th group's also, I love my time at ACO at Camp Atterbury. Those are good guys, man. Good teams there, good leadership. We, before Maddie got let go, we all got let go. I know we were putting through some good candidates at the SFRE. There was high success rate at selection. I don't know what they're doing now. I have no idea. I haven't talked to them in a while. I talked to one of my old teammates who's now a team sergeant the other day because I have a friend of mine that wants to join up and go to SFRE. I was like, hey, I got a guy to send you. He's like, send him, but we're about to deploy. He told me they're about to deploy. That's the last contact I've had with those guys. And that guy's name's Ryan. He's a team sergeant over at, I think, Team 1. But it's I got nothing but love for those guys, man. It's a good unit. I had a lot of good times deploying, training, and doing JSETs with those guys. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. It's fun being in a guard, dude.
Well,
it's fun.
I'm sure it would be. That time has sailed, and now it's on to other things.
That's right. You should definitely go do the SFRE time as a civilian, man. Just attach yourself to those guys and enjoy it.
Oh, I'm going to. I can't wait. It's like 4 days coming up in June. I've already got all my stuff. My stuff's ready upstairs.
Hell yeah, they're gonna love you.
I'm excited. And it's crazy. Like the other guy, he's a team sergeant. We're the same age. Like,
yeah,
I'm thinking, man, I'd be a team sergeant now.
That's right.
And,
that's right. It goes by quick.
And I think now, like being this age and this maturity level, it's like, yeah, I could do that. Back then, no, I was a fucking dipshit, you know. But
right.
you progress, and I don't know how I do. Maybe I would do good. Maybe I'd do bad. Maybe I'd be in the middle of the road. But you know,
do fine, right? Like you spend enough time on a team, you need to promote, you need to move up, you need to take on mentoring the new guys. Like I said, my captain told me, he's like, I want you to go to warrant. He's like, I want you to go to warrant. I was like, cool, I'll go to warrant. And I was in the middle of dropping my warrant packet and the pandemic hit. And they were like, you're not going anywhere.
You can go fucking nowhere.
Yeah, they're like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what we're doing. Right. So then things got really weird. So, and that was the end of my warrant packet story. I was going to be the Team 2 warrant, man. I was excited, you know.
Well, now you got the big family farm growing corn and pumpkins and all that shit.
I make my own pesticide. I make my own fertilizer. I make my own soap using the same kind of processes. I help guys get their VA rating. That's kind of where my main source of income is. Most of my clients are SF dudes that are tired of doing. They've either worked with the VSO who just couldn't get it done. VSOs can be hit or miss. They're good. They're like Green Beret Foundation, great VSO. That's any SF dude. That'd be the one I'd point him to. I'd be like, look, go to GBF first. If they can't get you done, or if they don't get it done in a timely fashion because they just got too many, come see me. You know. But after that, I wouldn't recommend going down to the local VA. They got literally thousands of clients, and they're just not going to be able to give you the kind of service that's required. And then if they're going to do paid service, like our company, there's a handful of paid services that I'd be like, yeah, that's a good one. And there's a vast majority of them I would say, no, don't do that. Our company is started by an SF guy, Christian, who's an 18 Delta. We're very small. We don't advertise. We're word of mouth. We're super competitive on pricing. We don't charge any extra fees for doctors and all that stuff. We're as good as it gets. And then you got guys like me that are doing this. So I'm pretty dedicated to my clients. I don't have 1,000 clients. I have like 40, right? So I can dive deep. Like when I onboard a client, I'll be like, all right, dude, give me your med records. Let's look through them. I'll take, 3-4 hours and just comb through their med records myself. And then point out like, all right, this is where you should have this. You should be increased here. Or they denied you for this. We got to go after that. And then the piece the most value we bring to people besides personal attention and detail is some guys, they need to see a doctor, right? Some guys need to see a doctor that's not at the VA because the VA docs, when you do your CMP exams, aren't always 90% of the time, they're not there for you. They're there for the VA. So, or they're just not there for the right reasons. They might be a shitty doctor, or they might not be the greatest doctor, and they're working for the VA, right? So, some of them are great, but every now and then you just don't get the results you need. Where we bring the most value is our network of doctors will see you, do a DBQ for you, and they're on your side, and they're going to write a positive medical opinion. And then now you can submit evidence from an independent doctor, not from the VA. That's your doctor. That goes quite a long way in adjudicating your claim for that rater. So a lot of the SF guys in the community are like, oh, F those guys. It's a paid service. It should be for free. I'm like, Roger that, should be. But these paid companies exist for a reason. And my own story with the VA rating stuff was I think I got out with like 30%. And I wasn't even trying to get a VA rating. I was like, I went through the, you BDD, benefits delivery, when you're doing your ETS stuff. And I met this old, crusty VFW, old sergeant majors working for the VFW. And I got to the briefing where you do your VA stuff. And I sat down with him. I was like, hey, man, I'm really not interested in VA disability. And he's like, fuck you, sit down. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, shut up, dude. I'm pushing 70 years old. I was in Vietnam. Just shut up and sit down. And I was like, okay, all right. So I was like, all right, I just listened to the dude. He's like, he didn't say another fucking word. He's like, I'm going to get you something and you'll thank me in 20 years. I said, okay, cool. I was like, cool, whatever, if you get me something great. He's like, all right, good. Because I already found some stuff in your record. So he ended up getting me 30%. And I didn't really give a shit about it until about 7-8 years later when, I started having issues with some things and I wanted to get care at the VA. And I went and got care at the VA and they're like, well, have you gotten connected for this? And I was like, no. He's like, well, you need to get connected for it in case this gets worse because, you've got kids now. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I was like, all right. And talking to some buddies, they're like, yeah, Rick, you need to get this shit. Just go ahead and go for it. So I started trying to get it. I kept getting just stonewalled, man. And my medical record I've gotten blown up a couple times. And I've got I had back surgery later, while I was in the Guard, but for sure from shit, we all have a bad back. And I knew my medical records justified a higher rating than 30%, but I just didn't have success at it. So I kind of gave up. And then the pandemic hit, dude. And I was looking at losing my retirement. And I was like, shit, I got 15 years in. These guys I'm going to lose my pension. So Christian at the time was still doing, he was still drilling at Guard. He was a training team with me, but he'd also been helping guys with their VA claim on the side, just helping them like for free, not charging me, just SF dudes. Like, hey man, can you help me with my claim? And he was helping them win claims. And before you knew it, they were like, dude, he had too many that he could handle. He's like, I got to start charging these guys to kind of get them away. Like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? But they were like, whatever you want, I'll pay you. So Christian was like, ding, 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 smart 18 Delta's like, I think I've got a business I could do. So he got a website up and just started charging dudes and pretty modest, and he had a business. And now it's been quite a couple years, few years now, but it's been like, I would say 2 years where it's a serious, like it's actually a thing. And then he asked me, he's like, once he helped me get me 100% first time go, man, it was amazing. He was so knowledgeable. He knew what he was doing. He understood the system. And, at the end of it, he's like, Rick, man, I need help. You're an 18 Delta. You're a smart guy. You'd probably crush this claim thing, man. If you just help if I give you some SF dudes as clients, will you do it? I was like, yeah, give me a few. So he gave me like 10 dudes. Of those 10 dudes that went through, man, I think all of them got 100%. And so then it just kind of, all my clients come from those guys. And then whenever Christian's like, hey, I got too many clients, let me send you a few, he sends them to me. So I've got probably like 40 clients now. And every single guy I've used for SF guy has gotten 100%, every single one. There's a couple guys that came through that were like infantry or they got a little less than 100, but vast majority of my guys get 100. So I'm like crushing it. My guys are happy. It's a little extra income for me to be able to just chill, not have to go take a real job to supplement the farm. So it's great, man. And I feel like I'm doing a ton for the community. So I just constantly try to educate guys. I always do free consultation for SF guys because there's some guys that's just like, can you just show me how to do this on my own? I'm like, yeah, if that's what you need, I'll do a 1 hour with you. I'll show you how to do it on your own. But after that, I'm busy, right? Like after that, like, and a couple of those guys eventually came back and like, all right, screw this. They got denied. Like, all right, dude, please, I'll pay you whatever you want. Get me the 100%. Like, cool, I got you. So I got some guys that are stubborn and they're going to do it. It's going to take them 5 years. And I got other guys that have done it once. And they're like, all right, cool. I understand. I'm going to pay you. Or guys are just like, they're done. They're like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm sick of it. Take my money.
Yeah, I gotta take a sleep study and then call back to the guy at the Green Beret Foundation, and then we should be good. I got a bunch of zeros on mine, zeros and
Oh,
tens.
dude, yours is super easy. You just need to get those things submitted with evidence. You should be good.
Yeah. So, but fuck, man. I mean, it sounds like you're living your best life. It's great. And you get to be on a farm all the time and just hang out with your family. It sounds like it's getting pretty rowdy in the background there. So I'm gonna move us.
It's always a zoo, but it's all good. And I can always, whatever you need, man. We can talk about anything later on too. Tackle some current events or whatever you want. I did a lot of jabbering, but
You're good.
I'll
take us through our 5 questions, and then we'll cut you loose. I'm gonna.
All right, let's do it.
Other stuff anyway. What's your response to thank you for your service?
Oh, cringe, man. I always cringe. I'm like, oh, don't do that. But I get it. I don't physically cringe when they say it, and I just kind of say, oh, my response is, oh, well, thank you very much. That's usually what I say. I just very kindly say thank you very much, and I hope to move the conversation on. So, when I'm in the Home Depot and they see my USAA card, right, my debit card, it says, like, oh, are you former military? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, don't forget to get your 10%. It's like, yeah, it's not a big purchase. I'm not too worried about it. They're like, oh, well, thank you for your service. Like, oh, roger that. Thank you very much. But for the most part, it could be a lot worse. The boomers, right? They got the exact opposite spit on when they came back from Vietnam. So I'm full of gratitude, man. Any of that kind of stuff. I just try to have a heart of gratitude and just remember the guys that didn't make it back. And but it's good that we live in a country where some of the people say thank you, but I'm not looking for thank yous by any means. I'm broken. My back is shot. I'm just trying to farm, raise kids at this point. So, and just trying to shop in Home Depot. I really, you know what I mean? I don't, and help other guys get their ratings. So that's my response.
That's funny you say that. I always park in that spot, even though it's farther away. My wife's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just think it's funny to park in this veteran spot that's like way off to the side.
Yeah. It's always on like the.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Nobody's ever parked here. So it's kind of close. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. Fuck. I think it's funny. I just think, all right, what is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
Ooh. One. Ooh. There's a lot, but yeah, if you could narrow it down to one. All right, say the question again.
What is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
One. Gosh, if I had to pick one. If I had to pick just one, I would say perseverance. I think there's a few more I'd like to say, but if you making me pick one, I'd say perseverance. And it can be defined a couple different ways, but stick-to-itiveness, resiliency, perseverance, never quit, right? I think ultimately that's like the common thread. That is one of the many, but that is for sure one of the top qualities that's common amongst every single one of our guys is perseverance. Whatever situation you're put in, right? Whatever environment, perseverance. Yeah.
What's the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive or redo, and it wouldn't change where you are now?
Man, I think of Sam Green a lot. That time, if I could go back in my career, there's a lot of things in my career that are really, if it's something I would change, boy, would I love the opportunity to go back and talk to Sam about that tramadol I was giving him. And that wasn't the only one. I mean, I just didn't recognize it soon enough. And that's hard. That'd be the one thing I think for sure is to maybe get a chance at keeping Sam from going down the transitional despair, if you will, with narcotics. So yeah, that's it for me. 100%.
Yeah, it's tough to recognize because you just don't think that way. You're just like, somebody asks you for something. Oh yeah, here you go, man. So
Yeah.
you don't really, your mind doesn't instantly go that direction unless you've already seen it. If you've already
Right.
seen it, then you'll recognize it. But if that's why all this training and all this bullshit that we go through is like when it comes up again, you'll be able to react to it more efficiently or better. But if you hadn't seen it before, you're not going to recognize it. And then it's like
Yeah. He had us all. SF guys are sneaky, man, right? Or sneaky.
allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah. So he had us. I wasn't the only medic. I mean, we come to find out when Sam died, it kind of went around, and because he died the way he did, you don't hear anything about it, right? You just hear within the circles that knew him, all the 18 Deltas that knew him is who I talked to. And I made a couple phone calls like, hey, did you know about this with Sam? And I'm like, yeah, did he ask you for stuff when you were in? He's like, yeah. It's like, shit. Yeah, we all had the same story. We all gave him something. Tramadol is not technically a narcotic, but it's very similar. So I don't know the whole story other than I know he got addicted to narcs and then he OD'd. That's what I know. And it was after he transitioned out. He ETS'd and just shortly thereafter. So yeah. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice that you received during your career?
Oh, it had to be Dave Lance, my old team sergeant. I remember there was a moment. There's a lot of moments like this, but this one sticks to me the most. And it wasn't necessarily a piece of advice. It was a moment where I felt like it was the moment where I knew, like, I felt like, I had said earlier in the podcast, we're all trying to figure out, do I have what it takes? Right. And it was the first time another SF dude that I felt like I looked up to tremendously, obviously. Just said, he didn't say that explicitly. And I'll give you the context. He said, but it was essentially a moment of, you have what it takes, Rick. Fucking execute, And I think, so the context of this was he had given me an assignment. A lot of the 18 Deltas end up doing intel, right? Because we got nothing to do. We're deployed if we're not, we're training with all the guys. But when we're downtime, a lot of our guys end up doing intel. And so Dave was an 18 Delta, did intel for the team. And then he's like, all right, Rick, I know as an 18 Delta, you ain't going to have shit to do. So you're going to be doing intel. I'm going to keep you busy. I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, go shoot in the morning with the Bravos and then come back and sit at the in the ops end and look over intel packets and start helping me run our our intel network, our human assets. And one of the early things he had me do was he was testing me, I think, but also we ended up using this stuff. He wanted me to infiltrate the Iraqi. He wanted me to end up at the Baghdad, and he wanted me to end up doing legislator stuff at the capital in our area, which would have been, because we were in an area with Kurds. We were in Kirkuk. And so we dealt with a lot of people in Soldinie and Erbil. And so politically, it was super contentious. Okay. And then, of course, you had all the Arabs. And he wanted me to eventually make my way into the legislative process and start getting access and placement with some of these civilian leaders in these groups and all these factions. And, I'm the new guy, and I'm like, what the F are you asking me to do? Right? And everybody else gets like an assignment, like, you're going to set up SATCOM on our team house, and you're going to do, Bravos, you're going to set up the range and whatever. Yeah, I think Mitch got to build a freaking rock wall, and Rick's got like this random assignment to infiltrate. I don't speak any Kurd, and I barely speak Arabic. I speak good Arabic, but not enough to fool anybody. And I'm like, what? Where do I even start with this shit? So I think like 2 weeks goes by. He kind of just gave me the assignment, let me go, right? I think he was just, and now looking back, I'm like, he's for sure just fucking with me or testing me, but he was testing me, and he wanted to see how good my problem solving was. But so I get back to him, and he's like, he sits down, he's like, all right, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, I can't remember what my answer was, but I was having a hard time. I didn't even know where to start. And dude, he lit into me because it was to him, it was like, you didn't do shit. I feel like I'd done something. I can't remember what I had come up with, but it was terrible. He was like, what the F? You're smarter than this. I assigned you this. Why don't you do? I don't even think you're taking this seriously. And I just looked at him. I said, how the fuck am I supposed to do this? And he's like, you're a fucking Green Beret, Rick. You're an 18 Delta. He's like, you're the fucking new guy, and I gave you this. You think this is just some bullshit? I was like, it feels like bullshit. I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this? He's like, and so he gave me the lecture. He's like, I expect more out of you. You're a fucking Green Beret, and you can do this, and you can solve the problems, and just start. He's like, you need to think like a Green Beret. You just haven't been given the opportunity to think like a Green Beret. And so he didn't just leave it at that and just dog me, and he didn't counsel me or anything, but he just kind of laid it on his. And I was like, fuck. First assignment, I fucking suck. In my head, right? I'm already disappointing. My team started my first deployment. We haven't even gone on a mission yet because we're still prepping. We're still trying to ascertain what's going on. And part of what he wanted me to do was get atmospherics, get access and placement, start building a network. That's essentially what he was having me do. And he gave me a very specific problem, which I think got me a little less distracted. I kind of got tunnel vision, right? So after giving me the lecture, he sits me down. He's like, all right, let's do this together. He's like, I'm going to spend some time with you over the next 2 days. I'm going to get you started. And dude, it's fucking awesome. He proceeded to set up like fake emails of a university student in the United States who's inquiring about writing an essay on such and such topic, which had to do with the conflict going on in Iraq, specific to that area. Clever, very clever, very clever. Then he had me go into he had me go meet and introduce myself to the PRT, which is the Provincial Reconstruction Team run by the State Department, and which is all basically agency stuff, right? He's like, why don't we have other assets in country. Have you thought to maybe go talk to the people that are really good at this? And I was like, well, who? He's like, well, the CIA. I was like, we have CIA here? He's like, fuck yeah, we have CIA here. And he's like, they're called, and so like, he's like, yeah, he's like, okay, look, it's State Department, but rest assured, he's like, I haven't met the station chief, but rest assured, you're going to walk over there, introduce yourself. You're going to meet some CIA people. Eventually the station chief is going to come introduce me introduce himself to us, I expect to get an introduction. But you're going to use this opportunity through the PRT to get that introduction, and then we'll, because we just got in country. So I was like, okay, cool, check, boom. I'm going to have a university. I'm going to set up a simple email, and basically that email was to find out who the people are and find out, can I infiltrate? Can I find somebody access and placement through that way? And then the PRT was to get in-ground access and placement through the State Department. And then what was the other one? Medical. He said, all right, so you're a religious guy, right? And I was a very religious guy. I was known to be, I was the designated driver when it kind of sucked. It's one of the, actually, this is funny. My nickname from Dave was the God NCO. My nickname was the God NCO because I was a religious guy, Catholic, and I was the God NCO. And so Dave was like, all right, you're the God NCO. There's a bishop here. I want you to link up with the bishop. And I want you to kind of get in with them. And so by the end of it, I was like, I feel so fucking stupid. Of course, I could have done this if I just take a step back, assess the situation, make a sound and timely decision.
Not just the little one.
Right. All I was thinking about was how do I get into the legislative branch of this Kirkuk, blah, blah. It was like, I was an idiot. So yeah, he's like, assess the situation, find a sound and time, make a sound and timely decision and execute with violence of action. Right. That's kind of his 3 rules. And, I came out of that and I realized I have what it fucking takes, man. And a lot of team sergeants might react differently, but he knew what he was doing the minute he assigned me, and the minute he gave me that specific task, he knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? So, I mean, looking back on that, that's the most memorable thing as far as a learning moment, as far as a lesson, and what I look back with quite a bit of fondness. And I'll share that story with whoever I spend time with, especially my sons, right? Because there's going to be a day when they're going to say, I can't do this, Dad, right? That's essentially what I was telling my team sergeant, right? I can't do this, team dad. Fuck, you can. You're a Green Beret, right? Let's look at this. Let's first of all, shut the fuck up. Yes, you can. Second of all, let's assess the situation and figure this out together, right?
Just gonna have to figure it out, bud.
That's right. FITFO.
If you're going to find your bag in the hallway.
FITFO.
All right, man. Last one. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Oh, 100% letting down the guys. I was always nervous about the only fear I ever had my time on the team was a fear of some kind of incompetence or just an error or just not being strong enough, good enough, smart enough to do my job, right? So I was super autistic about that. And that's what I was always most afraid of. Now, getting shot at sucks too. That's pretty terrifying, but you kind of get over it real quick. But that's pretty fucking terrifying too. But those are just moments, right? Those go away and you deal with them. But a constant anxiety about, maybe anxiety is the wrong word, vigilance, a constant vigilance about being good enough for the guys around me and always trying to get better. Now that I'm a dad, I think it's the same fear, but as a dad and husband, I gotta win bread. I gotta make money. I gotta be strong. I gotta be competent. I gotta raise these guys. I gotta look out for their safety. I gotta build this business. I can't let them down. And I gotta provide for something, not just so I can eat today, but so my kids can eat in 2 generations. You know, that's what I'm thinking generationally now. So that's what I'm bringing. That's how I'm thinking right now. Everything I do, I'm thinking my grandkids. So, and that's my fears. Will I leave them something? Will I leave my grandkids something to sustain them and my kids? The most important thing I care about is my kids really love each other and maintain these adult relationships as siblings into adulthood. So, yeah,
man. Well, it sounds like you're well on your way. All right. If people want to look up the Big Family Farm, how can they do so and find you on socials and all that?
Yeah, it's a big family farm on Instagram. Um, I think I'm on Instagram as Farmer Rick, and then I'm on X a lot as I think Rick Paul. I'm not as active on there. I think that's just where I doom scroll, but uh, maybe I'll start putting out some tweets here soon. But most of we get real active on social media during the fall. And then my wife, she's a pretty big influencer in the Catholic world. Her name's Leah Darrow. And then if people want to find, if people need their VA rating, if they need help there, they can just DM me on any of those socials, and uh, I'll get them squared away. You know,
Right, man, I really enjoyed you coming on my show and talking with me. And
it's
if
been a
anyone's
pleasure,
listening at
man.
home, get in the comments and I'll hamstring you and bring you on the show for special operations. All right, Ricky, you got anything for me?
No, man, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you the best. And keep in touch. Let me know if you want to take on a topic together. We'll
Yeah,
come
man,
back and do it.
I think the show, you know, as it evolves, yeah, I'll still do long episodes, but I'm starting to do some hour episodes with people, and I like doing those too. So I'm gonna have
Yeah,
two. You know, you can do an hour, or you can do a long one, or whatever. But
yeah.
the
Let's
show will
tackle something.
evolve as yeah, absolutely. That's the goal. Is I want to get so good at speaking about anything that I can do a keynote address on no notice with no notes. So
Right on. I love
that's
it.
the goal.
I love talking about stuff. I love problem solving. So come on, man. I'm ready.
All right,
Just say
man.
when.
Bye. I appreciate you. Bye, everybody.